fantasy, horror, thriller, dark romance, dark fantasy, and much, much more on today's episode of the Story and Critique Show. Welcome to the WriteNow community. I'm Kauffman, and I am on a mission to help the writers of the world with the process, lifestyle, and mindset that it takes to become a published author. So come join us because we're starting right now. All right, my friends. And for those of you who don't know, if you want feedback on your story, usually would be the time to submit it. But I'm actually pretty at max submissions today. So we got some great stories and I am eager to hop into it. Let me hop into the comments and welcome everybody. By the way, if you're watching this on the replay, I got you covered. When the stream ends, time code gets added to each part of the stream. So that way you can go back, you can hop to the part of the stream, part of the video, rewatch the stories that really stood out. Or if you got feedback, it helps you listen to the section of the video that brings you the most value. All right, my friends, and welcome Courtney first in today, and Bobby, welcome. Glad to have you in here. ML, working on your last edits. Glad to have you in here, my friend. I'm happy that we have everybody here. Our chat's like super active today. Shulky, welcome. Hello, all rise. I never officially introduced myself. You're Courtney's husband. Glad to have you in the community, my friend. And Miss Marta. Hello, everybody. Wow, so crowded today. I know. Maybe because it's a Saturday, or maybe it's because this is the last critique show until December, because we have so many writing events coming up. Could be one of the two. So very, very cool. We got some great stories set up here. And Zach, my friend, looking forward to checking out your story. Welcome back to the community, my dude. Awesome. And let's see. Mary, welcome. And excellent. So I am so looking forward to all this. Now let's get right into it because I want to be able to get to as many of your stories as possible. So for those of you who don't know, in the Story and Critique Show, essentially writers from the community will submit their stories for live reading and live feedback. I will go through each story section by section, and we'll see whatever type of craziness we can get into. And by the way, if you really want feedback on your story and you're like, hey, I need it today, show your support. Now that we have unlocked super chats and super stickers, stories that are messages that are super chatted will be prioritized, simply because I need to prioritize the finances. So definitely, if you want to support the community, drop those super chats and stickers here on the YouTube platform. Thank you, my friends. All finances go to building up the community, advertising, marketing, and development. Next, I want to be able to invest in the next levels of the Discord so we can get more features unlocked on there. All right, my friends. So getting right into it, let's see. So you can see that I have it all set up here on my end. So I have our first story, Miss Marta. Let's see, here we go. Inside Out, a psychological horror by Marta Chowanska. So Marta, I'm going to be diving into your story first. Now, for those of you who are new to the stream, or if you haven't been back in a while, the way that I frame this, essentially, I'm going to go through the reading and I'm going to highlight as I go. If I highlight, it's not a good or a bad thing. It's a reminder for me, so I know parts that I want to touch back on in the critique. Now, how I go about the critique, I like to look for these following 5 elements of creative writing: character development, world building, dialogue, plot, structure, sometimes grammar. I always try to recognize that grammar is more on the back end, but I like to break it up into what works and what doesn't work, because it helps give tangible advice for writers to be able to improve their story. Remember that all of my advice is subjective. And also, let's say that you're watching in the community and you're like, hey, something really stands out. Drop a comment, because I guarantee you all the authors are either watching on the live or the replay. Just make sure that you're saying, if you like something, why you liked it. If you dislike something, just make it clear why it is that you disliked it. Because remember, all feedback is good feedback, as long as it is delivered in a way that is clear and kind, which is why I always love to rely on emojis, especially with writing, since the internet and text can be so taken out of context sometimes. So definitely come join the conversation. All right, friends, and without further ado, I'm going to throw up Marta's story, Inside Out. I am stoked. I am happy. MLBomb.com. I really appreciate you, my friend. I really, really do. Any support that you guys offer for the community, it just means so much to me. And realistically, like everything, I would say everything that I pull in from the YouTube portion of it, and really the majority that I pull in from client work, is really just gets reinvested back into the community, because my goal is to build up the biggest, most supportive writing community for new writers, intermediate writers, and those of us who are working to publish our first book or books a series, or who just want that daily writing motivation. So thank you. It really means a lot. All right. And you're like, I skipped somebody important. You're like, Marta, I'm starting with you. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm starting with you. All right. All right. Absolutely love the chat in here. I absolutely adore you guys. So without further ado, we're going to be getting right into it. So we're starting straight off with Marta's story, Inside Out. Chapter 2. Eomide, Eomide versus others. Eomide, Greg. I sit at my desk, my fingers nervously playing with the pen. My gaze moves across the computer screen, but the words on the document seemed blurred. The sound of the mouse clicking and colleagues talking quite far away from me is not background noise. It becomes an intrusive neighborhood that increasingly drives me into a state of panic. Social anxiety binds me in an impenetrable web that I cannot break. When a moment of silence falls in the office, I hear my heart beating in my ears. I know I should react, maybe to Greg, our supervisor, who is approaching the team with a smile on his face that has often sent shivers down my spine. Greg goes on joint trips with us and leads meetings, but to me, he is more than that. I just don't know what he thinks of me. And this ignorance makes me feel literally paralyzed. With each step he takes towards me, I feel the blood pulsing in my temples. What should I say? How should I behave? I analyze every concept more and more, but everything seems trivial and pointless. A short greeting that could be a bridge to establishing contact turns into mud in my head. These are really just reflexes that I will forget the second after I say them. Suddenly, a moment comes that I did not prepare for. We have been invited to a social gathering at a bar near the office. Actually, I should be excited. So many people from work have agreed to come. A normal, safe meeting. But I panic. I can't get out of this bubble of stress that surrounds my thoughts. I know I have to do it, but every step I take takes my breath away. A person like me will never be able to find reciprocity in love or even infatuation, which I'm currently struggling with, Greg. Lying, cuddled in the duvet until the last moment. I'm not sure how my evening will go. Indefinably nervous. I throw whatever I have at hand. Fuck! It wasn't supposed to be like this, I shout. Why the fuck me? Saying these words, I am aware of the elderly neighbors living nearby, whose hearing, surprisingly, is not failing me. I cry and scream at the same time. Finally, I go out to the balcony to light a cigarette. In such fits of anger, a cigarette always brought results. This time, I am calm. I stand on the cold tiles barefoot, without any slippers or socks. I am so pissed off that I decide to go to this party. Anger has always been stronger than fear in my case, probably because of the character I inherited from my father. I put on my first evening dress that comes my way, the first, i.e., the only one I have, and leave the house. When I finally stand at the bar, I feel my knees shaking. People are talking, laughing, and I feel like an intruder. I pay attention to Greg, who is in the center of the commotion, surrounded by a group of people. His words are casual, contagious. I'm terrified by how easily he connects with others. I start to feel that feeling I have for him is turning into frustration. I would like to be close, but the thought of them making a fool of me is deadly. I am driven by infatuation, turned into frustration. I approach the center of attention, Greg. Regardless of the consequences or the number of potential witnesses, I pull a sharp knife from the belt of my dress. I can't have you. In that case, no one will, I think to myself. Before the world can realize it, I plunge the knife into Greg's chest, feeling the pain of my hand at the same time. The open inner side of my hand is also marked by a deep, decisive cut. Greg is coming towards me. I feel time stop. What is it? After all, the man should be lying on the ground nearby, and the crowd should be going crazy with terror. Meanwhile, everything seems to be the same. Only the palm of my hand still hurts. I don't understand at all what happened. I will definitely have to consult the scene with my therapist, Esme. Gregory starts walking toward me, but my thoughts explode like uncontrollable fireworks. Greg is alive? He's talking to me? I'm not a murderer? But what to say? How not to let out a groan? I say a few words, but my sentences seem to be lost in the loud laughter around me. Everyone throws themselves into the whirlwind of the jokes, and I become part of the unwanted circus. I remember how in the morning I tried to choose an outfit that would make me more confident. Now I only dream of disappearing. At some point, the superior, in a good mood and full of energy, asks me a question, planning a small break in the conversation. And then the worst fear appears. I stumble over my own words, which are rolling on the edge of my tongue, but instead, a quiet, broken sound comes out of me. The laughter around us begins to die down, and I feel myself falling into an abyss of embarrassment. Instead of understanding, I see deep concern on the faces of my coworkers. Is it me? Someone says. Take it easy. But that only adds salt to the wound. Greg looks at me for a moment, and I feel my heart crumble as I see something in his eyes that looks like sympathy, but also a hint of disapproval. I try to smile, fulfilling the misplaced hope that I can somehow fix this. But every thought is now chaotic and every reaction is painful. After a moment spent in silence, pushed into the shadows, I decide that I have to leave. I can no longer bear the shame that is taking over my mind. My heart is beating slowly now, and my mind is returning to memories as I feel my body slipping away from the company. With each step toward the exit, I feel my wings, which had dreamed of soaring, sink lower and lower into the darkness. The night was supposed to be a way to build a relationship with Greg, but instead it was another nail in my social coffin. What now? The hope for a better tomorrow disappears with every moment that this feeling for him, because there's something about him that attracts and terrifies at the same time, begins to turn. How could I confess this to him? How could I trust when I don't trust myself? End reading. Awesome. Marta, thank you so much for that. I didn't know that I would get to have fun playing around being the it's almost this like because the main character is not really a serial killer, but this main character has definitely this type of infatuation. And it's hard to say whether it's founded or whether it's unfounded with our character of Greg, but it's so interesting. I think I love the psychological element and the psychological nature of it. I felt like I was on the edge of my seat the entire time, trying to think of like, oh, are they going to kill Greg? Are they not going to kill Greg? Is everybody like what you do such a great job of is our main character is they're not an extremely unreliable narrator, but they're kind of unreliable. And you do a really good job of roller using tension as a roller coaster. So I feel like there were moments where there were low moments and then high moments where it had me on the edge of my seat thinking, is she going to kill Greg? Did she kill Greg? Because there was a moment there where I thought she actually had pulled out the knife, but then the way that it was worded, I'm like, okay, so that was in her head and everybody's just laughing at her. Or are they actually laughing at her? And is it all just in her head? So you did a really good job of setting the overall scene and setting the world. As I think about what I really loved the most about it, I would say that the world building was hands down my favorite. I felt like I was very much in the world of our main character, and I thought that was very clear. It was very clear that it was a psychological thriller, and I think you did a good job with that. Let's see. I think from a structuring, I think the structure of it was fine. I didn't have any problems with the way that it was structured. Let's see. I think the biggest opportunity might be character development. But yeah, so let's dig into it because I want to go back through it a little bit. So we start off with our main character here at the beginning, and let me just reiterate: the story's in a really good place. The story is in a really good place. It's almost at a point where it's probably time for more of a line edit for it more than anything. Now, of course, if there's a longer story here, let's say I forgot to check what was the I forgot to check if this was the full story or just a short. Let me see. Inside Out. Yep. Okay. Yeah. So this is a short story. Yeah. Okay. So then, as a short story, then, let's see. Full base on the shit as in your head, Marta. I'm curious. Was this the full story, start to end? Was that the end of it, or is there going to be more to it? Because that may affect my critique. But overall, I would say sitting at the beginning, especially with short stories, well, we have more time than we would with the flash fiction. It's a little less time than normal to set up our characters. So you do a good job of setting up our nervous, social, anxiety driven protagonist. Now, something that I love, and I meant to highlight this. You say, I know I should react maybe to Greg, our supervisor, who is approaching the team with a smile on his face that has often sent shivers down my spine. I'm like, okay, that has often sent shivers down my spine. I just don't know what he thinks of me, and this ignorance makes me feel literally paralyzed. Now, what I would recommend on this one is I would recommend just adding a little bit more definition because a smile on his face that sent shivers down my spine. This could be taken in one of two contexts. This could be taken, and because I took it in the creepy context, because this is like a psychological thriller, but it could be taken in like, oh, infatuation, does he like me? Or sending shivers down my spine because he's the creepiest guy I've ever seen in my entire life. And because I'm thinking psychological thriller, I'm thinking, okay, maybe he is creepier and maybe he's giving off that very, very creepy vibe. So that was just something that was on my mind because then I want to know, okay, because essentially what you're doing is since the whole character's journey revolves around this guy Greg, around either killing him or not killing him, I think it would make sense to make it a little clearer for the reader on, do we know that the character is thinking of him as a love interest, or is the character thinking of him as, this guy creeps me out and I want to kill him immediately? So I think that would be my first recommendation. Just clarifying that, because then I know we get towards, okay, like she's clear she wants to stab him. So then it's like, okay, well, he's probably just a creepy hey, just creepy. I feel the blood pulsing my temples, which I say. But then when we go here, this makes me think, okay, well, maybe she's infatuated with him. How should I behave? I analyze every constant move. Everything seems trivial. A short greeting that could be a bridge to establish contact turns into mud in my head. These are really just reflexes that I will forget the second after I say them. And I love this. What you do amazing is you do such a good job of establishing your protagonist. Your main character's thoughts is very, very clear. And I think what it is it's just adding a little extra descriptions around how they feel about Greg specifically. I know that they're nervous, and I know but what I can't tell is if they're nervous because of love or if they're nervous because of fear. But maybe that's part of what you're going for. If you were going for that ambiguous of like, hey, I want the reader to not be sure whether they love him or whether they're afraid of him, or maybe it's a mix of both. And I think that would be the way to tackle it. Would be my guess. The reason I say push it towards one or the other is because then you're inviting the reader to join you in a singular, clear emotional experience. But for anybody who's dealt with anxiety, anxiety isn't black or white. Anxiety is a roller coaster of emotions. And if you were just trying to capture that feeling of anxiety, you did a great job with that. I would highly commend you. But from a character perspective, I would say pick one emotion. From an anxiety perspective, it's it's a range of emotions, let me tell you. Let's see, what else do we got? Let me hop into comments real fast. The characters will be developed a little bit more later. Glad to hear that. By the way, welcome Atomic. Glad to have you here. LeMay, welcome, welcome. Penelope, glad to have you guys in the stream. Let's see. Atomic, you're saying this was well done. I still struggle a little bit with the first person's present tense, but I wonder if that's just a generational thing. Yeah, I think the tense is an intentional choice by the author. It sounds like the tense is intentional. Mm-hmm. It does because anxiety is such an integral part of the character. Anybody who has experienced anxiety, I myself have, you know that you almost feel like you get trapped in your head in the present moment, but it's almost like it's a range. It's like it starts far out and then it gets closer and closer and closer until you're just trapped in the present moment. So I think that was very, very important to establishing that first person narrative. I would like to know why she is like this. Backstory hurt before, even if they touch on lightly that familiar feeling. Okay, so I think that's interesting, right? So do I get a little backstory? So we know that she works. We know she works in an office environment, but do we know what this office environment is beyond? But granted, we're in chapter 2, right? So recognizing that we're in chapter 2, chapter 1, we probably already got the setup of who she is as a character and where she works. So I think that's definitely really important to call out. Hey, welcome, Doreen. Rishi, you're like, do you do creative writing essays? I could. We generally tend to stick to fiction. We could probably do nonfiction. I mean, we could try. You could always submit it and send it, and I could see if it's something that's doable or not. It really just depends on can I give valuable feedback that would actually be able to help you? And is it something that the community would appreciate? So it really just depends on the context. But I'd say definitely try submitting it. I totally got that as well. I totally got American Beauty vibes as well. Very, very much so. I think using the first person works well for me because my stories are told based on facts. And once again, Marta, I really think you should start all your stories with based on a true story. Because people love, there's a reason that crime thrillers, anytime it's based on a true story, they advertise the heck out of it with based on a true story because it tells people, oh, this is something that really happened. Now, oh, I have to know what it is because this was a real event. It makes it a step closer to reality for people. Hey, welcome, John. Glad to have you in the stream, my friend. All right, so let me get back into where my thoughts were at. So we get into the gathering. Suddenly a moment comes I did not prepare for. They go to a social gathering at a bar. And then lying cuddling in the duvet until the last moment. I am not sure how my evening will go. Indefinably nervous. Indefinably nervous. I throw whatever I have at hand. Indefinably nervous. I throw whatever I have at hand. I think this just edit this sentence. That's just an edit. I was like, I throw whatever I have at hand. That just needs a point of clarity. Fuck, I wasn't supposed to be like this, I shout. Why the fuck me? Saying these words, I'm aware of the elderly neighbors living nearby whose hearing, surprisingly, is not failing them. I would actually go with them because that's hilarious. That is hilarious. And that's something that you really want to do well in thrillers, right? If in a thriller you go horror, horror, horror the entire time, it's all right. But in any type of experience, you want to balance different emotions. Now, in a horror thriller, obviously the emotion is fear a majority of the time. But if you balance it with comedic elements, even if it's dark comedy, it does such a great job of allowing the viewer to go on a roller coaster of emotions. So I actually really, really like this. You're like, she's basically cussing, and they're like, all right, well, elderly neighbors, of course, they can't hear anything unless you're cussing. Like, of course, there's something very comedic about that. So finally got to the balcony to light a cigarette. And such fits of anger. So a cigarette break, and the first evening dress that comes my way. People are talking to me. So this is all good. So then we're paying attention to Greg again. His words are casual, contagious. I'm terrified by how easily he connects with others. I start to feel that feeling I have for him is turning into frustration. So this makes me think that then the way she feels is love. Well, not, yeah, I mean, love, infatuation. It has to be infatuation. I start to feel that feeling I have for him is turning into frustration. So it has to be infatuation into frustration. And let me go up here because I want to check back with that line. Greg, who is approaching the team with a smile on his face that has often sent shivers down my spine. Okay, so then it has to be a good. It has to be a good. So then it has to be that she's into him, because then this is more anxiety from nerves of, oh, I'm into this guy. Maybe this guy's really hot. Maybe I don't know how he's going to respond. Regardless of the consequences, I am driven by infatuation. There we go. You're very clear on that. I would actually just put this infatuation earlier. I would just make this the infatuation mark earlier in the story, so that way it's clear for the reader. But the thought of them making a fool of me is deadly. Now, this is what I love. This is such a great, 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 great moment, Marta. I love it. So you're like, the thought of them making a fool of me is deadly. This is such a clear psychological motivation for a character that deals with a high level of anxiety. And I think that is very well done. I pull a sharp knife from the belt of my chest. I can't have you. In that case, no one will. I approach the center of attention, Greg, regardless of the consequences of the number of potential witnesses. I pull a sharp knife from the belt of my dress. Now, the recommendation I would make for this moment, I love this knife moment because we're like, oh shit, she's literally going to go kill him right now. That's actually really cool. I would have Greg do some type of action that pushes her past the point. Instead of him just standing there, I would have him, maybe he like whispers in another girl's ear and starts like saying, or maybe like our main character sees him whispering in another girl's ear, or maybe he makes out with some girl, or he just does something that would then immediately make her think, I can't have you. No one can. And then that would make this decision, even though this is a fantasy, that would still make this even more believable. Of like, no, he didn't. He knows I'm into him, sort of vibe. Let's see. I realize I plunged the knife into Greg's chest, feeling the pain, but that's good. Greg is coming towards me. I feel time stop. What is it? And this is all good. Only the palm of my hand still hurts. I don't understand. I will definitely have to consult this scene with my therapist. Only the palm of my hand still hurts. I don't understand at all what just happened. I will definitely have to consult this scene with my therapist. Because so this is when we realized Greg's actually walking towards her and she was just having a fantasy. Only the palm of my hand still hurts. I don't understand at all what just happened. I will definitely have to consult this scene with my therapist. That's good. That's telling us, okay, it was all in her head. Greg's alive. He's going. At some point, the superior in a good mood. Oh, just the word choice on superior. Is that referring to Greg? Let's see. And then the worst fear appears. I stumble over my own words. And then, of course, he approaches her and she wants to say things, but it's all she can think of is she's stumbling over her own words. She's probably confident maybe when she's by herself or with friends or family, but then he comes and she's suddenly truly embarrassed. She probably feels that everyone's laughing around her. Anybody who deals with social anxiety, this is such a great call out. And then I actually like that you say this as a site. No, actually, never mind. So this is good. Someone says, take it easy. Instead of understanding, I see deep concern on the face of my coworker. Is it me? Someone says, take it easy, but that only adds salt to my wound. Instead, I see deep concern on the face of my coworker. Is it me? I think I would make that its own, only for so that stands out more, because that's actually a really good moment. I think I would make this its own paragraph, because this is actually a good being like, oh, somebody's trying to talk to her and she's like, no, that makes it worse. After a moment spent in silence, so that I can no longer bear the shame. This is good. Yep, and that really brings us to the end. How could I confess this to him? How could I trust when I don't trust myself? Really, really great job. Really great job, Marta. Absolutely loved it. That's all the feedback that I got for you, but that was a great psychological thriller, my friend. Really, really cool. Awesome. So I really enjoyed that. And I think I can tell, Marta, the community really enjoyed it as well. I see a lot of the appreciation there in the comments. And I think and this is great, Mario. So I think this shows that there's such varying perspectives and opinions to the same story. That means that you are doing your job as a writer if your goal is to try to create different emotional reactions. Some people are vibing with the anxiety, some people are vibing with some of the other emotions. And I think it sounds like that's your intention, especially with the fear of our main character. So definitely, definitely great job. Hey, welcome, Christina. It's my first time catching you live. Welcome to the community. Glad you're able to make it for the live stream. We're having a lot of fun. We're doing our Saturday critique stream is we read live stories from the community, and then we do feedback. So we just did a little psychological horror. That was super cool. The next one's actually going to be much, much darker. So let me throw up so I can throw it on deck. We're going to be hopping over to Sins of Our Mother, a thriller short. This one's going to be super creepy, my friends, by Prolifically I Write. So that one, Sins of Our Mother, is on deck. That is where we are heading to next. Sins of Our Mother. We have some really I think everybody is in the horror vibe today. With Halloween being next week, with our Freaky Friday flash fiction competition coming up, I think everyone's feeling the horror vibe. We're like, I know that's what's up. Yeah, and I think that was along the same lines of what I was saying, of making him have a specific action during that bar scene. Completely agreed with that. Penelope, I appreciate you, my friend. Super sticker. And it's so stupid that StreamYard doesn't let me pull up the super stickers, which means that I have to go to YouTube to pull it up. This is a great super sticker, actually, by the way. It deserves it. Because who, as a super sticker, doesn't want a, let me pull that up. Who is a super sticker? Let's see if I got it. Now I got to get this full vibe there. Where did my comments go? There we go. Who is a super sticker doesn't want the unicorn? I mean, come on, guys. We always need unicorns here. I love the super stickers you guys use. I don't even know what super sticker options are available. It's awesome. All right, guys, we got our unicorn. Penelope, thank you so much. Appreciate you, my friend. All right. So I thought that was great. Excellent, excellent. Let's see. Wait. And where are we at? Absolutely agreed. Hey, what's up, Skull? Welcome, welcome, my friend over from Twitch. Hey, just working and listening to the advices and stories. Love Marta's narration. And whether you're coming from YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, or any of our other platforms, all are welcomed. I try to throw as many of the comments up on the stream so everyone feels included. And Marta, I can definitely tell everyone really, really appreciated it. That's totally all right. I forgot to send my blurb for the contest story, mainly because I forgot to write it, but I'll try to do that tonight. I sent that out as an email for our fiction contest finalists. If anybody wants to send me a blurb, 2 to 3 sentences, super short, and a picture. That way we can advertise it with a picture and a blurb. We'll start advertising them next week. Yeah, so actually we should try to get pictures for all of them, because we could probably advertise the individual flash fiction stories as ads to build up hype for the event. That'd actually be super cool. Excellent, Zach. We're just getting into it. John, like, as long as all unicorns fart rainbows, I might be slightly okay with them. John, you probably know from our the OG internet, Charlie the Unicorn. I was like, for anyone who knew YouTube in the age of Web 1.0, Charlie the Unicorn was probably one of the most memorable unicorns I have ever seen. He was the biggest asshole who was just the biggest dick. It was funny. Kind of like Archer, if Archer were a unicorn. Aw, Marta, that's really, really kind of you. You're like, special discount on my books for members of the community. That is so, so cool, my friend. And I know we're working on getting your book out. I know it'll be coming out soon. So Destiny will be definitely out. We'll have to make sure to make an announcement whenever you're ready to launch your book. Like, speaking of book launches, I probably need to do some type of community. I need to create some type of community option for book launches. Anytime somebody wants to have a book launch event, that'd actually be kind of cool. Yeah, I gotta, like, now that I'm thinking about that, that would actually be kind of a cool thing. Would you guys like that? So actually, this is I pose this question to you guys before I hop into the next stream, or not the next stream, the next story. Would you guys like something like this? So anytime that somebody launches a book, would you guys like there to be an option for us to do some type of like book launch event within the community? Is that something you guys would appreciate? I don't know what it would look like. I don't know if that's like, okay, something in the Discord, something on the live stream. Kind of have to think through logistically, but I thought it just came to me. Have to brainstorm a little bit on logistically what that looks like, and then an execution. But if anybody has any ideas, I'll probably throw it up in the Discord later, because that like just came to me. I thought that would be sweet. Doreen, so you're like, a picture, how do I do that? So what I'll do is I'll start with AI generated images, and then I Photoshop and I edit on top of that. What I suggest for you, if you don't have like Photoshop or picture experience, go find a picture online that feels like it's a good vibe for your story. And it's basically just like think of it as like a cover art, but not something you have to pay for, just something that can be done easily. If you don't have something, either myself or Penelope will create something easy for it if you can't find something. But we kind of thought we thought of that at the last second, like, all right, let's have some types of like pictures to like start the stories off, to set the vibe, which would be super cool. I mean, I was like, I don't want to be farted out by a unicorn. Right? Yeah, I don't. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's like, I don't think I'd want to be farted out by a unicorn too. That doesn't sound too kind. Aw, Zach, I just saw your super sticker. All right, I need to go hop back over to, let me pull up the next super sticker. So we got that one. Let me pull up Zach's. Yes, I love it. Zach, thank you so much for the super sticker. I love our little fox. I need to create some more sound effects. So sound is definitely going to be on my to-do list. I love that. Thank you so much, my friend. That is awesome. As I'm starting to see more of or as I'm getting to this part of the year where especially like super stickers and chats become an option, I know I need to increase my sound effects game. So definitely on my to-do list. I'm hoping I have enough. Please, like, I'm hoping that I have enough for the holidays to invest in this thing called a stream deck, which allows you to like put in like sound effects and put in like special effects and all these things to improve the quality of the streaming experience. They're a little pricey, but that's like the first thing that I really want to invest in, because they're so helpful at making streams more engaging. Something that big streamers will use. All right, beautiful. So let's see. With that, let's hop into the next story. And while I'm pulling this up, by the way, if you're enjoying the stream, follow and subscribe. I'm here every day with the Right Now community. Whether you want daily motivation, author interviews, critique shows, or fiction contests, choose your own adventure events, blurb fest, or any other part of the process, we got it all. We have an active community of writers who enjoy the writing process. So whether you're fiction, nonfiction, or anything in between, tap those buttons and you'll be alerted when we go live. All right, my friends. Beautiful. So with that out of the way, I have Prolifically I Write Sins of Our Mother. All right. So I think that is good there. Okay, beautiful. And it looks like I have it all set up on my end. Perfect. So here we go. So I got Sins of Our Mother, a thriller short. Now this is going to be a little creepier one. So be warned. Be warned. All right. What's up, Mom? Welcome, my friend. We are just about to hop into a creepy horror short. Ooh. What does the fox say? Zing, 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 da ding. The fox says what? I have that song stuck in my head now. That's creeping me up. That's cracking me up. I'm throwing up creepy music on my end. I was like, okay, all right, here's the vibe. Let's do it. Sins of Our Mother. I'm dying, Lord, and I am glad of it. I am alone. I have always been alone. Therefore, maybe it is only fitting that I shall pass alone. I am not a bad person, although I may have done bad things during my miserable life, some of which may even be considered wicked. I would argue an eye for an eye, also that a single wicked act to prevent multiple ones may even be considered an act for good. Presumptuous, perhaps? What was I to do, Lord? With the cards, I was so cruelly dealt. Where were you when such injustices were heaped upon one so very young? Dumped as I was, a baby, unwanted, upon the steps of that torturous orphanage. Run by wicked, cold men, proclaiming to be some of your doting Christian servants. But they surely were not. So, with nothing but my name, there I remained, year after God forsaken year. Did you not forsake me, Lord? For no matter how hard I prayed, or worked, or withstood the cold and hunger, weathering the unjust whippings and punishment, when I would not willingly succumb to the brazer desires of your supposed servants for an easier billet. No, you had turned your face from us, Lord. You know you had, poor wretches that we were. I used to dream of my mother, or who I imagined her to be. I used to wish for her to appear, to reclaim me, to rescue me, to return me to the life I should have had. Not once did I villainize or demonize her, or her abandonment of me, at least not until she came back. I remember little of what was said to me by way of introduction, or by her in way of explanation. I was too preoccupied with being so utterly disappointed in her, my errant, absent mother. From her disheveled appearance, the cheap powder and rouge upon her world weary face, or her crass, fishwife manner and demeanor, every facet of her offended my long held fantasy of who she was. Yet, just like that, and after barely a 5-minute conversation, the woman who had never wanted me upon my 11th year came and took me back. Was that the reward for all my prayers, Lord? If the origin had been bad, the following 3 years were so much worse, Lord. My mother had not returned through a belated maternal instinct. Oh, no. Nor through my sentiment or guilt. No. I was pimped out for the gentry. The sort of mustached popinjays that fancy young boys. My mother sold her young child's flesh as her aging flesh lost its luster and profitability. Yes, Lord, my sainted mother, who declared sing the error of her ways, was in fact nothing more than a prostitute, touting her wares on the streets of London, and that of her recently reacquainted son. I was not alone in this misery, Lord. No, you were blind and unhearing to my and 4 others' plight. My mother's work, colleagues also abused and exploited children, whether their own or some poor waif, adopted and initiated into accommodating the sordid pleasures of the gentry for payment. We were wretched and forsaken, Lord, often drunk or drugged to be pacified, pliable, numb to the pain. I waited, Lord. I waited for your mercy, for an avenging angel, for deliverance. But no, you were not there. You were never there. Only now at my end, I feel your presence, the hypocrisy of your judgment and condemnation. So yes, Lord, I killed them. I killed them all. Satan's creatures, I put them down like the animals they were. In doing so, I freed my companions in hell. Too late, for we were now damned. But it was that I ended their torment where you would not. I marked their tormentors too, Lord. I carved them so the devil would know his own and return them to hell. I took that which they should never have had, and that which they abused the most. That which allowed them to be mothers, I cut it from them and burnt each in flames. How it spat, Lord, the whores, ill-awarded tools of creation. They hissed and spat until they were the black, twisted things the women's souls had been. Yes, Lord, I did all that. The people of London gave poor Jack a new name, the Ripper, and I dispensed justice and mercy where you and your angels feared to tread. As I said, I have done bad things for good reasons. So am I a bad man? Probably. The rest of my life has been unremarkable. Riddled with the diseases of sins of the flesh, there could be no family for me. I worked whilst I could and never hurt a soul since. Does this count for anything? I am not looking for absolution. I care not for your forgiveness, for I cannot forgive you, Lord. But I am done with this life now. It's mercifully short as it has been. So judge me as you will, but know you stood idly by, Lord. You stood idly by. End reading. What a creepy first person POV for our beloved Jack the Ripper. It's always interesting when you take a villain and we turn them into an anti-hero of sorts, when we essentially want to humanize them in a way that we can empathize with their journey, but then by the time we get to the end, we feel that they have, like, subconsciously. It's interesting because it's really a power fantasy. This is why characters like Walt from Breaking Bad worked so well. It's why characters like Dexter worked. Same reason why actually the closest this character resonates with is the character from the TV show You, which is also based on a book series, by the way. But that same character, Joe from You, another serial killer, they kill for a reason and a purpose. But the reason the characters work is because we humanize, we empathize, and we care about them during the setup of the story and during the early part of their journey. But by the end, we feel that because the things that they do bad, we feel that they have to get some type of justice, or some type of justice has to happen for them. Even though we might empathize and we may want them to succeed, when the character dies in the end or they don't make it in the end, it feels gratifying because we've allowed ourselves to go on a journey with a serial killer. Killing people is bad. And then at the end, it's like a karmic justice. Now, what you did really, really well with this, my friend, is you did a nice setup for leading us into the empathetic side of Jack the Ripper, right? And you could tell that the twist of the story was essentially, oh shit, it's Jack the Ripper. Right now, I know like nothing. I know nothing about Jack the Ripper's story. I know that he was touted a lot when I was doing tours over in the UK. I remember when I did tours a while back. I remember Jack the Ripper was like a main story, but I don't know too much about his origin story. So I think it did a very good job as a POV of Jack the Ripper POV in the hour right before he's about to pass. I thought that was very, very interesting, and it was a very, very good job. So I would say definitely your world building was very spot on. I can't speak too much to any historical accuracy simply because I don't know his background or his story, but as a piece of fiction, it definitely worked. It definitely worked very well. The character development definitely worked well. I was very happy with the character development, the world building. I think there, I think the biggest I think the biggest opportunity is probably more like a little structure, grammar parts of it to just clean it up more than anything. But as a short, it definitely worked really, really well. Yeah, and that's what I was saying as well, Zach. I'd say that overall the piece is pretty strong. I'd say that overall, like the piece is really more ready for an edit than anything else because it's very compact. You know what you want to achieve with it, and you achieve it. I think the only thing is you would want to just make sure everything's historically accurate. So that way anybody who's a Jack the Ripper fan is like, yeah. If anything, you might want to actually this would be my recommendation. If you do another pass through of it, do more foreshadowing. Do you want to do as many foreshadowing things as possible for things that Jack the Ripper was notorious for. So like the twist at the end is great. Do more foreshadowing in the first half of the little things that Jack the Ripper did. Now, I know you did that by basically going through his life story, but I think if you could reference like what were other things that he was notable for, and then trying to do it as a foreshadow, something that the reader's not going to pick up on because the twist itself is impactful, but something that the reader might not pick up on, it will make the reader love the Jack the Ripper. It'll make the reader love it all the more because then they feel like, oh, they got me. I didn't know it was Jack the Ripper. I thought it was just some creepy character. Because right now it's like, and this could be me because I don't know too much about Jack the Ripper, but it's right now it feels like it could be any serial killer, but then you start getting into the kills themselves. I'm like, okay. But I also don't know Jack the Ripper history. So for me, I'm just not familiar with the Jack the Ripper history. Mm, yeah, that's what I do know. I would play into more folklore elements. I know for the record, Jack was never named. They do not know who he was. The prompt was to humanize a notorious villain in 2 pages. Wow. Well, you absolutely nailed the prompt, my friend. You absolutely nailed the prompt. Let's see. So as I'm going through it, I would argue. Actually, just 1 second. All right. So let's see. So I'd argue an eye for an eye. So I think I like this. I think this just need to be reworded or not reworded, restructured. I would argue an eye for an eye. Also, that a single wicked act to prevent multiple ones may even be considered an act for good. Argue an eye for an eye. Also, yeah, I like the word choice. It just needs to be rephrased. Absolutely just needs to be rephrased. With the cards, I was so crazy. So we do a lot of oh woe is me in the beginning, which is good. So the first page we're doing a lot of oh woe is me. Yeah, and I was like, I feel like I was definitely in the character. I would say just if there's more folklore elements, throw in more foreshadows. for readers to potentially pick up on who are like Jack the Ripper fans. That would be, I think that's really the only like major recommendation because it's just a really strong piece. What I absolutely adored was the fantasy with the mother of him having a very specific fantasy about who he thought his mom was and then who she actually was. And she basically found him to basically make money off of him, to basically prostitute him out because she was too old. So I think that in itself, such a dark poetic injustice and poetic beauty there in the way that you detail it. Yeah, so essentially you go from the mom into him being pimped out, which is good. And you said, no, you were blind and hearing to my and four others' plight. You know what? We were wretched and forsaken, Lord. I think if you were to expand this, I would add a little definition into who these four others are specifically into my and four others' plight. My mother's work colleagues also abused and exploited children. So then they're essentially referring to the four other children. And of course, without knowing the lore of Jack the Ripper, I can't speak to that. But this would probably be another good foreshadowing opportunity here, would be my guess. Mm-hmm. We were wretched and forsaken, often drunk or drugged to be pacified, pliable and numb. Yeah, this is good. Comedy in the sword. Yeah, I don't know if this part's necessary because I mean you've already kind of set up that they've been abused here. This is a little extra. I would rather replace this with give me a little bit about who these other four were, so that way it almost gives us another reason to humanize these other characters. Yeah. And actually, because you referenced Satan's creatures, I think you should foreshadow Satan earlier in the story. I think you should set up this battle because he's speaking to God, but then even before the mother comes in, I would foreshadow being like, no, I'm turning from Satan, or maybe like Satan, somebody mention a Satan reference in the beginning, but then he refuses Satan in the beginning when he's a child. So that way, when he accepts Satan in the end, we actually get even more of a character arc and it makes it more impactful. Because I think I really like that duality between him speaking to Lord, but him embracing Satan. And doing so, I freed my companions in hell. Too late, for we were now the damned. I marked their tormentors too. I carved them, but it was in doing so, I freed my companions in hell. Too late, for we were now the damned. I'm not sure what this means, but it could be like a poetic or metaphorical. In doing so, I freed my companions in hell. Yeah, this could be. So I don't know if this is poetic or metaphorical, or if this is supposed to be literal. I freed my companions in hell, as if like he's freeing basically his demons to allow him to be the killer. And then this makes sense, focusing on the tour. I took that which they should never have had, and that which they abused the most, that which allowed them to be mothers. I cut it from them and burned each. Yep, so this is all Jack the Ripper lore. They hissed and spat until they were black, twisted things the women's souls had been. The people of London gave poor Jack a new name, the Ripper, and I dispense justice and mercy where you and your angels feared. As I said, I've done things for good reasons, so I'm the bad man. I would say before you get here, I would want to hear how does Jack think about himself? because I want that resolution. You mentioned the Ripper, and that's cool, but I want to know, how does Jack feel about being named the Ripper? How does he feel about how he's perceived? Um, but then it's interesting. You ended off with him feeling unremarkable, and I think this is actually a really good ending. But I am done with this life now, as mercifully short as it has been. So judge me as you will, but no, you stood idly by, Lord. You stood idly by. You could probably even take the very end one step further and insinuate how he is going to end himself. I think you could do that. Take it a step further if you wanted to. But yeah, awesome. That's all my feedback for you, Zach. Really, really awesome. Great job. It's hard to write anti-heroes and do it. It's hard to write anti-heroes authentically and make them liked, because inherently they're very evil characters. So it's very difficult to pull it off, and you pulled it off well in this piece. That's actually a really good point. Yeah, so I got you, but it was proven a few victims were not prostitutes. Interesting. And I think, Zach, I think this goes into the biggest thing of just looking at other things that you could reference to Jack the Ripper. Because I think for this piece to be like, you could actually make this piece like really, really successful. You should definitely like get this published. You should work on it, get it published in some type of like horror anthology, or publish it yourself. And you want to reference, if you can do it in a way where you reference every single Jack the Ripper like thing that we know, for at least to some enough to enough of a fact, and then foreshadow it throughout that first half of the story, you will make any Jack the Ripper fan absolutely adore this piece. Absolutely. Interesting. There's a mythology that Jack the Ripper and an apple a day keeps the doctor away comes from the same story. Interesting. I've definitely heard that quote before. Well, that totally makes sense, Zach, because the poetic nature of it totally stands out. You definitely have a way with words, which is super cool. I with poetry with me, I used to do it when I was did a little bit in college. I just haven't really attempted it in a while, but I have such a respect for poetry, because you have to have a really great understanding of words, word choice, and you have to have a very big vocabulary. You have to have a bit more of an extensive vocabulary to really tie words together in a way that feels natural and rhythmic. Excellent. So I can tell, Zach, that the community very much appreciated it. Definitely a really fun piece. Thank you for sharing that, my friend. That was excellent. Excellent. And as we're going to hop into our next one, so Christina, we're going to be hopping into a dark Gothic fantasy. I was like, ooh, I love the dark vibe that we got going on today. We're getting some really great dark, creepy vibes from our stories. So, but before we do that, hmm, feel like I'm Oh, it's like that feeling when you feel like you're gonna sneeze. It's the worst. Okay. So before we do that, I want to do a quick shout out for the Right Now Discord. If you haven't hopped into the Discord community, we have a very, very active Right Now Discord. Come join us. We have daily conversations. There's like general writing conversations. There's places for you to share your work. There's places where we talk about scams for things that writers need to be aware of. We also will do announcements for our fiction contest, our upcoming events, and our Choose Your Own Adventure event. There is a lot going on in the Right Now Discord. So I'm dropping it in the chat if you guys want to come join, if you haven't already. It's also down in the YouTube description. Highly recommend. Come join us on Discord. We are only a couple weeks old and it's super active. So definitely come join us. We're going to continue adding more and more layers each week. I always want feedback, because the goal is to give that community, that other resource for writers to be able to go interact with the things that they want to do, whether it's talk with other writers, whether it's do writing sprints, whether it's do games, whether it's advertise or learn. So it'll definitely be growing over time. So come join us on the WriteNow Discord. All right. And excellent. So I am going to pull up Christina's. All right, perfect. So we get to play around with a dark Gothic fantasy. I totally forgot to fix the font on here. All right, perfect. So I am all set. So I have this one. We have the Twisted Garden. So this will be super cool. Clearly, we got some really great responses on here. Let's see. Okay. So I am all set. So what we're going to do, we'll hop into this next one, The Twisted Garden, a dark Gothic fantasy. Chapter 1, The Storm Within. Okay. I walk the city streets. Just another face in the crowd. My eyes scan the bustling scene, taking in the ordinary lives of those around me. But beneath my seemingly mundane exterior, a secret lingered, a power I had kept hidden, even from myself at times. I can be anyone, or so I thought. I could shift and mold myself to fit any shape, any persona I desired. It was a talent, a curse that I had discovered early on. I could be the femme fatale, the seductress, the girl next door, whoever I wanted to be. But who was I, really? My name is Evelyn. I craved a sense of belonging, a place where I could be myself, unrestrained by the expectations of a mundane world. And so I found myself drawn to places of mystery and allure, like a moth to the flame. I sought the extraordinary, the supernatural, and the dark desires that lurked in the shadows. That's when I heard about it, the ancient estate. Rumors whispered of its mystical gardens, a place where the lines between the living and the supernatural blurred. It was said to be a gateway to other dimensions and ancient powers I had to see for myself. I stepped into the gardens and everything changed. The exotic flora, the eerie essence, it all spoke to me. I discovered a reflection of my tangled desires here amidst the ancient trees and mysterious caves. And so began my journey of self discovery, power, and exploring my true nature. The rains pour down in streets, the rains pour down in sheets. A stormy sky spilling its wrath upon the ancient estate. My heart quickens as I seek shelter, my eyes drawn to the grand manor like a beacon in the night. This place, it calls to me. An irresistible force pulls me towards it. I step closer, my breath catching in my throat as I take in the majestic estate. Its architecture is a mix of elegance and decay. The garden surrounding it is wild and untamed, a beautiful mess of exotic plants and ancient trees. What secrets do these walls hold? What mysteries lie within these gardens? A rumble of thunder echoes through the sky. Answering my unspoken questions, I quicken my pace, eager to find refuge from the storm and curious about what this place offers. Welcome, Evelyn. The voice startles me, and I turn to see a figure emerging from the shadows. It's a woman, her features illuminated by a nearby lightning strike. Her eyes hold a familiar intensity, a recognition of the darkness within me. You've been expected. Come, the night is unkind, and we have much to discuss. I follow her, and my curiosity and desire for the extraordinary drive me forward. The rain soaked garden path leads us to a magnificent greenhouse, its glass glistening with raindrops. As we step inside, the warmth envelops me, and the scent of exotic flowers fills my lungs. You feel it too, don't you? The pull of this place? It's not a coincidence that you're here, Evelyn. Her words send a shiver down my spine. How do you know my name? I ask, my voice laced with a mixture of intrigue and caution. She smiles, a knowing glint in her eye. All in due time, my dear. The answers you seek lie within these gardens. But first, let us wait out the storm, shall we? And end excerpt. Excellent. Wow, wonderful. And reading and all right, perfect. So, Christina, I actually really like that. I felt like I was just getting into the story, and then the excerpt ended, and I'm like, wow, and I want more. I want to know who the creepy old lady is with this like haunted house vibe and this the creepy garden. You did a really good job of setting up the vibe through the characters, through your wording of the wording of the world and the what's the right word? It's just the wording of what the reader should be expecting for our character's journey. And I think you do a good job of it. I actually like when we do a cold narrator open like that. Essentially what it is, it's the narrator is speaking. Okay, so the characters technically speaking to themselves. It's basically their thoughts, their interiority of their thinking of like, oh, these are the things I'm thinking. Now, the way that it comes across on the page, it's essentially you're using that to show the themes of what the character is going to go through. It can be hard to weave because you as the narrator want to tell what's going to happen to the reader without making it feel as much like the narrator and more like it's the world of the story. So I think your word choice was actually really spot on. I really love the word choice. As I think about some things that I'd recommend for improving, I'd say I think the biggest opportunity is probably more of like the structure or grammar of it. Actually, and I'll show you why with some of the grammar elements could be better improved upon. So I would say that would be one thing. I really liked the character development. I like our protagonist so far. I Yeah, because you did some good descriptions. You did use a good range of some metaphors and similes to be able to flesh out the world. I feel like I got a clear like creepy vibe of the world. I'm asking myself, do I feel like I have enough understanding of what world I'm in? Not yet. It could be though because we're so early on in the story. It could be because maybe you have a prologue. But from what we've just seen, like I know I'm in some type of supernatural-ish world. I don't know what the world is yet, but I feel like where we're at so far, I feel like it's enough to at least give us a setup of where we're heading. So I think the world building so far, I'm fine with it. I think you could probably add another layer if you want to give the reader a better sense of like what is unique about this supernatural world, if you really wanted to. But it's not I wouldn't say it's necessary where we're at so far. So that's good. Dialogue. So your opportunity is going to be dialogue and structure. I like the plot so far, but I can't really speak to it because we just haven't gotten deep enough into the story. So I would say, yeah, Zach, I would agree. Great world building. They have definitely some good imagery. The creepy old lady is beautifully mysterious. Great voice. Thanks, my friend. Clearly, you guys know me. I love getting into the voices when I'm as I can. Let's see. So, all right. So we walked down the city streets. Just another face in the crowd. My eyes scanned the bustling scene, taking in the ordinary lives of those around me. But beneath my seemingly mundane exterior, a secret lingered, a power I'd kept hidden even from myself at times. Even from myself at times. Yeah, I think from this opening, I might give another additional description for something about this city. Simply because I want to get a I want to get a better understanding of like the supernatural vibe of this world. This could just be me. I know you're focusing more on the character journey. The only thing I would recommend is you throughout the first couple of pages, you put a lot of these in quotes. And I don't know why you put these in quotes. I don't actually think the quotes are necessary. Now, because if I'm thinking about it from the character or from the character perspective, so the character is walking down the street, and the characters they're just talking out loud to themselves. I don't think that makes sense. But I can tell, but what you're saying is awesome, but the way you're framing it. So I would recommend getting rid of the quotes until we have a character or until a character is actually speaking. I don't actually think the quotes are necessary until the creepy old lady shows up, because we already know that this is our main character. So it's the reader's smart enough to assume, okay, this is the character's interiority. So quotations just aren't necessary. We know, okay, I can be anyone, or so I thought. And you know what? This is actually a great example. And this is a mistake that we all make. We all make this mistake. I made it a million times, let me tell you. So I can be anyone, or so I thought. If everything that's happening in this story so far is already in the character's head, why add the or so I thought? It's actually already assumed that that's what they're thinking. So this actually just makes it stronger. So you say, I can be anyone. I could shift and mold myself to fit any shape, any persona I desired. I can be anyone. I could shift and mold myself to fit any shape, any persona I desired. It was a talent, a curse that I had discovered early on. I could be the femme fatale, the seductress, the girl next door, whoever I wanted to be. But who was I really? And I actually wouldn't, and this is like editor me coming in. I would, nope, not that. I would do that. I would actually make this thing, because this is like a really great call out. But who was I? So I could shift and mold myself to fit any shape, any persona I desired. So essentially, they are a shapeshifter of a sort. I could shift and mold myself to fit any shape, any persona I desired. Yeah, I mean, I think they're a shapeshifter, which I love that. Like, that is so cool. I love shapeshifters. Shapeshifters are so much fun to play around with. Now, we're so early on, we don't know whether this is like an inherent, like this is like a race, or this is like a magic ability. It's leaning on the edge of it being more like a magic type of ability, because it's a talent or a curse. So clearly they hate that they can change into anything. And then it sounds like the journey is going to be they never really know who they are, because they can be everybody else but their true selves. Hmm. Yeah, but this is the same thing with the dialogue. But once again, what you're saying is very, very sound. And so I found myself drawn in the place of mysteries and allure like a moth to the flame. I sought the extraordinary. Yep. So this is all good, because we get to the estate. So I would say just in this first section, I would set up the city just a little bit more. So I know that like what's unique about this city. What is so unique? Based off what she's saying, there's something like super dark, and it's probably supernatural if she's some type of shapeshifter. But I want to know, like, is this the type of city where it's like, is she like walking through the pouring rain, and it's like all like the buildings are casting shadows, and she's walking down this cobblestone street, everything's closed. I think I just want a little bit more imagery on what type of city that I'm in before I get to the estate. But that could just be me as a fantasy reader. Let's see. So then it's when I heard the ancient estate, rumors whispered of its mystical gardens. Yep. So then we get to the garden. I love this. You do a great job. This is foreshadowing. It was said to be a gateway to other dimensions. Great foreshadowing, by the way, and ancient powers. So we know that the plot is going to be around some type of portal or dimension within the garden, which is great. I love that. I stepped in the gardens. Yep. And I love that. So I think because there's such a distinction of suddenly everything speaks to Evelyn, I would make sure that everything beforehand feels that it's very like disparaging. I would make it all before feel even more disparaging, like like my life sucks, essentially. Because then when she gets here, I would adjust the language and being like, I discovered a reflection of my tangled desires here amidst the ancient trees and mysterious caves. And I would even speak to what about it, or what about it is speaking to her. She's saying that it's something about her desires. I think I just want a little bit more about the desires because I want to be able to see a distinction between how this garden and how the garden or the manor is speaking her to her as compared to how the rest of the world has been. And I like this. I think I wanted the rain a little bit sooner, but I get you're trying to set up the ancient estate vibe. You know what? Actually, what this makes me think of, I don't actually even think you need to set it up in the city streets. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't even think setting it up in the city streets is necessary. I think you just set her at the garden already. Because why? So why even worry about describing the city? Why just start at the manor? Then you don't even have to worry about that setup. Start at the manor. Start with us getting the vibe of the rain pouring down. Like I want that vibe immediately. You can start with her interiority, and that's great. And then her like walking beyond the gate, and her like, this is the play. This is where my true self is going to come to life. So I think I would do that. And then once again, our dialogue, no dialogue. This is all interiority. Now, I think this is a moment they could make her speak. And here, I'm going to tell you why. What secrets do these walls hold? Well, first off, don't do two questions back to back. This is just this could be a pet peeve of mine, but this is something that was explained to me a while back. Whenever we ask readers questions, we want them to focus on one question at a time. So if you're going to do multiple questions, alternate question, statement, but don't do more than one question unless you're going to do three questions and there's intentionality. And this is my rule of threes. Do three questions if there's going to be intent with why do I want to ask three questions back to back. But generally, on average, one question, because you only want the reader to be thinking about what is the one thing that I want to be asking myself now. What happens when you ask two is what secrets do these walls hold? What mysteries lie within these gardens? The first question gets lost because now I'm like, well, now I'm curious about what mysteries lie within these gardens. Then it makes me ask, well, what secrets do these walls hold? It's just not as necessary. I would actually just go, what mysteries, I would actually rather go because secrets, I think, is a little more general. I would go, what secrets lie within these gardens? And I think I would go that, leave us on one question. And then if I wanted to really do like dialogue, I would say, what secrets lie within these gardens? I found myself murmuring as I smelled the fresh decay of flora and fauna. I don't know. That's just some like creepy vibe. You could do whatever you want, but I think I would do something in that direction because then we're acknowledging, okay, she has a reason to speak because she's just starting to speak to herself. You could do this sooner. I just don't think it's necessary sooner because then you would have to set up why is she speaking to herself. Most people don't. I mean, the average person isn't going to speak to themselves unless that's like the type of person they are. Writers will do it all the time. But yeah, I think it's from a reader's perspective. You don't want the reader questioning why are they speaking to themselves because then you have to set it up and explain it. And that's just not necessary at this part in this story. And I like this. So I think my favorite part of this excerpt is our creepy old lady. I love it. It's a woman, and I wanted to call this out. This is such a great description. It's a woman, her features illuminated by a nearby lightning strike. What a great description. It's what I like about it is that you're using the scenery to show us, okay, this clearly she's like shadowed because there's like it's dark outside, the lightning strikes, and we see her for a moment. I think I love that. Her eyes hold a familiar intensity, a recognition of the darkness within me. The only thing I would add here is what is it that we see? What is it about the woman? I would say like pick one thing. What is the one thing that she sees about the woman when she's illuminated? Is it? It looks like it's her eyes. So her eyes hold a familiar intensity. I would then say speak to like her maybe her hair and her eyes or something about her face of like her weathered her weathered eyes framed against her black or her gray curls struck me with a familiar intensity. Like something to that, I would just give a little bit more so I can paint a little bit more of a description. Some writers like to paint a lot of description, some like to paint little. It's clearly it's a choice for you how much you want to do, but do a little bit so that way you can then let the reader go the rest of the way. They can create the rest of their own imagery, but you still would want to create something. And I like that. So the dialogue here is good. This bit is good. You feel it too, don't you? The pull displace. And the rest of this was fine. I was like, I was good with their conversation. You did a good amount of description here between their dialogue, and it just made me want to keep reading. So you did a really good job of setting me up and making me feel like, hey, I want to learn more. I want to read more of the story. So really great work, Christina. Really, really great work. Thank you so much for submitting this, and hopefully please write more. Very, very interesting story. Thank you again, my friend. All right, beautiful. So that was good. Good, good, good. Fun little story. Awesome. How is everybody doing? So before I hop into the next story, uh, how's the writing coming along for you guys this weekend? Hopefully are all you guys making some progress with your writing? Or maybe we're taking a break from writing, especially because we got a lot of really great work on the flash fiction contest. I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment. But yeah, I feel like we've gotten some really good stories. You guys know with me, I want to make progress on Scarecrow really badly, and I'm actually at a great place in Scarecrow. So really, really good. Thanks for dropping by, Zach. Appreciate you, my friend. That's awesome, Marta. You're making some really good progress on your work. That's really, really cool. I'm curious, what story is everyone working on? Are all you guys, because today you guys can see we've been getting a lot of dark horror thriller type stories. I'm curious if people are working on like horror stories right now, thriller or dark. Drop what genre of story are you currently writing? Drop it down in the comments. I'd love to hear what genre you're working on. You guys know with me, I'm working on dark fantasy Last Scarecrow. And I know some of your stories, but I'm curious what genre y'all are working on. Is everyone in like a horror thriller vibe right now? That's like thought just came to me. I'm actually really curious. But Marta, that's awesome. Making some good progress. Woo! That's excellent, my friend. Yeah, like Christina. I had to refresh the page, so I missed some. She is a doppelganger. Gotcha. She's a doppelganger. Oh, that's actually really cool. I love doppelgangers. That is really, really cool. Yeah, Christina, what I would say is if you missed any of it, after the stream ends, I would say just go back and watch the replay. I'll add time codes so that way you could hop to the part. And that way, if you have any questions about it or you need any follow up from it, you can always shoot me in a message or an email. So, but I really enjoyed the piece. It was really cool. I felt like I had this really cool setup, and I was like, I really want to know more. I would have had no clue she was a doppelganger. I was guessing changeling, but doppelgangers are a lot of fun. But we're still so early in the story. I was like, I feel like we probably didn't need to know that yet because it was still so early on. Courtney, editing a lot, miswriting at this point. But that's why that you'll get the nice balance, Courtney. So you've been getting a lot of great editing, and then you're going to be able to get back into the writing vibe. And I think it's being able to have that like balance between the two. So I know a lot of writers get burnt out on just purely editing. So I think when writers work on multiple projects, it's being able to go back and forth. Ooh, Marta, good for you. You're making some really great progress. You're making really, really good progress. Good for you, friend. I know it's the spooky season, right? It's absolutely the spooky season. The closer we get to the Freaky Friday contest, I'm just getting more like hype. Like I'm gonna have like this cool costume, and it just makes me want to be watching more horror movies and reading horror stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yep. So you're working on your psychological horror, prepping your dark romance, working on a horror side quest for a potential D&D game. So yes, on a horror kick. Absolutely love it. You know what I always appreciate? I always really wanted to play D&D. I think I was just, and I'd probably actually be really good. I'd probably be a really great game master and all, or not a dungeon master. I'd probably be a really good one. But I think I just never had the right timing. I never had the right time or the right friend group to be able to do a campaign. So then I just never ended up teaching myself. But that is super, super cool. If I'm ever at a point in my future life where I can do a D&D game, I probably would. If I had the time, of course, because I know you have to be able to commit X amount of time to doing a campaign. Because if I'm doing something, I'm going all out. I'm not just doing like any like half-ass. Like I'm a writer. I have to have fun with it. Like Mary got interrupted. I'm back. Still working on young adult and your fantasy. Yep, we're both in the same fantasy vibe over here. You're like, it's like a fictional history of ancient Egypt with fantasy and sci-fi elements, all in the perspective of the protag's diary. That's right. I remember you were sharing that with us. I love the ancient Egypt vibe. Ancient, and especially if you're doing, you said fictional history. So Egypt, fantasy, and sci-fi. That sounds really, really cool, actually. I remember you shared with us your blurb a couple streams back, and that sounds really, really fun. I love those sometimes, like when we rely on historical or historical cultures, it can be really cool. We all know, I've talked about this before, I love my Greek mythology. If I can infuse Greek mythology, I will. Greek mythology is actually a huge part in one of my scripts that I've had in development for a few years. If I decide to go back to, not if, probably whenever I decide to go back to working on a script, that's probably the one that I'll go back to. Oh, that's kind of cool. Also helping one girl with writing about astral journeys. Astral journeys and astral projection is such a crazy thing to think about. That's actually really cool. Astral projection, what a crazy experience, especially if anybody's ever done astral projection before. Ooh, dark fantasy with psychological and gothic horror undertones. So much fun. So much fun, my friend. Absolutely. Like Shoki does them on Discord. Oh, that's really cool. You do D&D campaigns on Discord? I was like, I never would have thought about doing that. But I'm also I recognize it's interesting because I've always been a gamer, but I'm not super familiar with the tabletop, with the TTRPG community online. I'm not super familiar with the online community because I've been focused in other areas, but I always find it so fascinating. I really, really do. But that's cool. So then I was like, okay, so then you probably set up, I think I could see how you would be able to run games like that through a Discord. That's actually really cool, by the way. That's really cool. Where, like I said, with the Discord, I'll be adding more game elements over time. We're going to start basic and then work our way up. So definitely the more options and the more things we can do on Discord, the more it gives me great ideas for how we can make it more interactive over time. Aw, of course, my friend. Again, I'm so thankful for being motivated. Almost gave up because I still have left another huge half, plus like changes in the first arc. But I got new ideas again and actually do some writing. I'm really, really glad you're able to find some motivation. Absolutely. You know, we're here every day. So like if you ever need like help with writing or questions, we got you, my friend. Absolutely. You're like, set up a channel for it. We can set up one shots for anyone who wants to try DMing. I can help guide people through it. I've taught a lot of people how to play. More than happy to get more into it. Dang, that'd be super cool. We'll definitely have to chat about it. I need to, I, I would be thinking through how would it work for people who want to improve at or play a D&D game or improve at D&D and incorporating it through writing or allowing people to try different styles. I think that'd be super cool. Absolutely. I'll connect with you at some point offline on Discord, my friend. That'd be super awesome. Like some of us have no life, so hit the Discord. I mean, I would argue that technically, just because you're doing more things online, doesn't mean you have any less of a life. If anything, I think that means you probably have more of a life. Like think about a lot of people who might just go to and from work and then maybe get home, family, TV. Like you could argue that that's not much of a life. So I think what type of life you have is subjective. And I think that's the beauty of life. We get to define and we get to figure out what type of life we want to have. It's me. I have no life. I think you have an awesome life, Courtney. I think it's just putting it into perspective is really what it is. Let's see. It's a great tool for writers. Creating a story and seeing how people react with it can really help with writing. I could completely agree with that. Well, like I said, well, I haven't done extreme I haven't done D&D stuff. I had a background growing up and doing a lot of role-playing forums, and I've always been a role-playing fan my entire life. So I have enough ideas on how D&D would work. Ruining my joke with logic. Courtney, I got you. I can't trying to help you keep your ego in check. Oh man, but yeah, I think that'd be super cool. It really would. And I could see how, as a form of storytelling, it could actually really help people. I have a couple ideas that I plan on trying, and I think there's definitely a way to incorporate D&D into it. I think that'd be really, really sweet. It would be really sweet. Awesome. So with that being said, let's do a call. So have you voted? Have you voted on? It's like people are going to think politics. Have you voted on the Choose Your Own Adventure story decision number 2? So for November, our next holiday event, we're going to be doing the Choose Your Own Adventure live event where we are going to be writing a community. We're going to be developing a story together as a community. During the month of October, we are deciding what the different story elements should be. We're figuring out, all right, what type of genre, what type of world should we do? So far, we picked the genre. We know the genre is going to be thriller/mystery. So I'm going to drop the link down there in the YouTube description if you have not voted already. Let's see. Let me pull it up here. Let's go. Yeah. All right. Perfect. So I threw this up. So if you have not voted already, go vote. Let me throw this up here. So go vote. I did the poll over on the YouTube community post. This is for story decision number 2. Voting polls will leave the voting open until Sunday. And then next week, we'll start voting for story decision number 3. So far, like I said, story decision number 1, we decided on thriller mystery. Decision number 2 is about which type of story world should we pick. Oh, look at that. Survival's coming. We got a little bit more love for the survival. Still looks like supernatural is going to take the win. So we got 25 votes. I want to say our first story, where was it? So our first one, we did about 35 votes. And it looks like mystery thriller was the clear winner, but science fiction was kind of getting close. So that tells me that we still got a couple more votes. There's probably some more opportunities for people to vote. It looks like right now, that's right. So Earth and alternate are very closely tied, actually, are absolutely tied. So we'll see if either our Earth universe or an alternate universe is able to overtake the supernatural one. Or are we going to be doing some supernatural creatures? I guess only time will tell. So if you have not voted already, go and vote. And then we will be launching the more details next week. It's going to be a 5-week holiday event. It will be every Saturday throughout the month of November where we're going to write a story together. It's going to be super fun. I am looking forward to writing a choose your own adventure story. Soul, our crowd favorite, Chat Soul, is going to be developing the game for it as we're writing the manuscript. So that way, by the end of the month, we're going to get to celebrate by publishing the manuscript. Anybody who writes for it will get a co-author credit. The goal for NaNoWriMo is 50,000 words, and then we'll also get to test out the game as well. So it's going to be such a cool thing. We're going to be doing it throughout the month of November. Will we be able to write a 50,000 word story together? Only time will tell, my friends. Well, with Chat Soul at the helm, we'll definitely be able to get 50,000 words. So that I'm not concerned about. Awesome. So definitely come vote, and excellent. So with that being said, let's move on to the next story. So we're going to be moving right along to Jezebel Presents. Bad dog, sit. thriller, noir, dark fantasy from our very own Miss Penelope Hartley. So it looks like Miss Jezebel is going to be making another appearance. Let me pull up Jezebel's and excellent. All right, so I got this all queued up for us, my friends. So we got Jezebel presents Bad Dog Sit. Episode 3, A Foggy Day. The murky autumn morning draped itself like a forlorn lover across the waters of the slow moving creek. Beyond the sandy beach of the sandy cliffs of the northern bank loomed the tree line. The leaves were turning luminous in the crisp autumn air, golds, rich browns, and the crimson of maples. The breeze picked up and sent a dappled mosaic of leaves scurrying across the ground, atop the unbroken darkness that waits beneath the dying grasses. The muted sound of the creek's murmuring tones were deceptively peaceful. If the elusive Tuttle Creek manatee truly hid in the undiscovered depths of the river and happened to pick today to emerge, it would behold a perfect autumn day. Perfect, if not for the gruesome reality of two mutilated bodies heaped upon the shore. Despite the double homicide, Detective Alara Monroe mused upon the picturesque scene. Her partner, on the other hand, was not seduced by the autumn scene. It's too cloudy, Detective Perry Lockhart muttered darkly as he stepped out of his ocean blue SUV with a flare that always caught the crowd's attention. His blonde hair, meticulously styled into a modest pompadour, gleamed even in the dull morning light. His pastel suit defined the somber backdrop with an air of casual grace. He removed his sunglasses with a practiced motion, tossing them into the driver's seat, where they landed neatly beside a well-thumbed copy of Enchanted Encounters, the Fey Gentleman's Guide to Forbidden Pleasures. Unlike the bright swirls Unlike the bright swirl of colors engulfing her partner, Alara seemed at home in the foreboding atmosphere that surrounded her. She strolled down a dirt path towards scene in her black cowboy boots, her long black hair cascading in loose waves down her back, partially obscuring the collar of her black leather motorcycle jacket. The fitted jeans tucked into her scuffed boots emphasized her slender frame, and her white t-shirt peeked out from beneath the jacket. As she walked, she surveyed the area with calm intensity. The usual mix of police officers and crime scene technicians milled about, marking off areas with bright yellow tape, collecting evidence and murmuring in low tones. As she got closer, Alara thought the evidence markers dotting the beach looked like grave markers in the bit of mist still clinging to the banks. The Manhattan PD's forensic detector, Izzy Malone, was already on the scene. Izzy's team bustled around like ants at a macabre picnic. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the tension was palpable as the forensics team carefully navigated around two bodies slumped by the water. Perry caught up with Alara as she ducked under the yellow police tape and entered the sandy foothold of the crime scene. The sight before them was chilling. The bodies, that of a man and a woman, lay grotesquely sprawled on the sand, as if they had been unceremoniously dumped in the darkness of the previous night. Though there was very little blood soaking into the earth, the bodies displayed ghastly wounds, deep gashes with chunks of flesh missing from their torsos, as if something monstrous had torn into them. Alara crouched down beside that of the man, her eyes scanning for something not obvious, something that would start her mind drifting in the direction of solving the crime. The soft, sandy ground beneath him seemed almost untouched. Her brow furrowed as she leaned closer, brushing her fingers lightly over the sand. There's barely any blood, she murmured. It's like they were brought here. Perry caught the edge in her tone and glanced over. He had been too caught up in the sight of the mangled bodies to notice, but now that she mentioned it, the absence of blood was glaring. His eyes darted back to Izzy, the forensics director, who leaned over the mutilated bodies. Looks like they were brought here, Perry echoed Alara's observation. Izzy straightened, her gloved hand brushing off the sand as she prepared to explain. That's because they were, she said. She pointed to the sand around the bodies, the untouched texture that should have been marred by the violence they'd endured. They weren't killed here. There's no signs of struggle, no asterial spray, nothing that indicates this is the primary crime scene. Perry's eyes narrowed. So, they were moved? Izzy nodded, her expression grim. Dragged, most likely by the marks in the sand. Whoever did this went to a lot of trouble to make sure we didn't find them immediately, though they couldn't have been here for more than 12 hours. They wanted the bodies to be discovered, just not where the actual murder took place. Ilara's gaze flickered between the bodies and the sand, which means they were killed somewhere else, somewhere they felt safe. Her voice sharpened. This was not strictly a crime of passion. Even though it's violent, it was premeditated. She looked up at her partner and the forensics director. But why bring them here to be found? Perry's face hardened. Could be a message. Or maybe they didn't want us to know where it happened, so we wouldn't figure out the connection. Either way, it's deliberate, calculated. A chill caught Perry off guard, and he glanced around. He thought the tree line had been further back, but suddenly the trees seemed so close to close in around him. The shadows deeper, the silence heavier. Whoever did this was playing a twisted game, and he had the unsettling feeling that they were just getting started. Perry pushed the fear edging toward him away. He glanced around wildly for anything to distract him, and luckily spotted something in the sand beside the bodies. A Greek key pattern, crudely drawn but unmistakable. Greek key, he said, pointing to the symbol, his mind racing to connect dots, which became increasingly obscure. As far as I can tell, yeah, that's a Greek key. And this, Izzy Malone said, handing him an object sealed in an evidence bag. Perry's well-manicured brow furrowed. The object appeared to be Greek as well. The same pattern as drawn in the sand was carved into a silver pendant, but he didn't recognize the pendant symbol, a crescent moon cradling a double-bladed axe. The bag also contained a silver chain. The chain snapped, he said, manipulating the bag's contents so that he could see the break more clearly. Whoever was wearing this didn't mean to lose it, he said to Alara, who wandered over to look at the latest clue. I know a bit about ancient Greek mythology and culture, but this I didn't recognize, he said, looking meaningfully at his partner. When all the obvious answers arrived at a dead end, when the scientific method and facts failed, he would turn to his partner. Alara Monroe had a distinctly unusual method of solving crimes, and her instincts were as sharp as whatever had torn into the bodies. Do you recognize this? He handed her the pendant with the broken chain. Getting any impressions? He asked in a low voice. Alara took the bag from her partner. Her fingers brushed the cool plastic as she closed her eyes. Izzy turned away. She depended on cold hard science and had always struggled with Alara's more esoteric approach to solving crimes. Ooh, excellent, excellent, excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Very, very cool. Awesome. So that was a fun little story. I know we got our cool little murder mystery. So I think what I really loved about that is, once again, the world building. Between the world building and your use of language, you're always such a pro at that, at being able to use language to paint a scene. So I think you did a really good job of setting up our characters. Yeah, I did think you did a good job of setting up this crime scene at this specific part of the world. Now, I know this is episode 3, so we don't get as much of the setup from the previous episodes of the overall world. But I know this was a Jezebel Presents, so each of these could be anthology pieces, or this could be from love spell. So I think as I hop into this and I think about what really stood out to me, I liked the character development. I think it was fun getting into both Alara and Perry's heads. And I think you actually did a good job doing bouncing back and forth between two separate character interiorities. You did a really good job of that. I felt like I was able to understand which character's headspace I was in, even though it switched from paragraph to paragraph, which can be a hard thing to do. The reason it was done well is because each of them, you use different word choice and style for each of the characters, both their dialogue and their interiority. So when you switch between one or the other, I'm like, okay, this sounds like Perry. Okay, this sounds like Alara. So you could probably take that even further and continue to even deepen the word choice between the two. But I think so far it's doing very, very well, and you're accomplishing what you set out to do. The murky autumn morning draped itself like a forlorn lover across the waters of the slow-moving creek. Nice imagery. Beyond the sandy beach, leaves are turning luminous, and the crisp. Yep. So you're basically setting up the vibe of this beach scene, and then we do a little metaphorical foreshadowing here. This bit with the Tuttle Creek manatee, this feels a little unnecessary to me, simply because we're trying to set up the vibe of the beach. Granted, it could be foreshadowing, so I'm not quite certain. This might be important for later on in the story, but right now the muted sound of the creek's murmuring tones were deceptively peaceful. Yeah. Because I see why you did this as the transition for the 2 minute. So this transition is great. That's actually a really good transition. Um, yeah, I don't think the manatee bit is important to setting it up. I would do a bit that leads into the perfect day, the perfect autumn bit from this paragraph, the muted sound of the creek's murmuring tones. So we get the murky autumn morning, we get the morning, we get the beach leaves. The breeze picked up and sent a dappled mosaic of leaves. So we get, all right, so we get the autumn, we get the beach, we get the leaves, and then we get the creek. The muted sound of the creek's murmuring tones were deceptively peaceful. It would behold, yeah. So I think I would frame it and lead this into the perfect vibe, unless this manatee is important, and then pivot this into here, simply because we want to get to the crime scene. Because the crime scene, because you basically spend a page on description and setup, which you can do, it's fine. But because this is a mystery, we want to get into the crime scene faster. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. Like Eli was saying, I personally like the cadence of Like a Lover more than with Forlorn. Also, I'm not sure how the drapery is changed by the lover being behind Forlorn, but it is a lovely image. Interesting. The murky autumn morning draped the murky autumn morning draped itself like a forlorn lover. The murky autumn morning draped itself like a forlorn lover across the waters of the slow moving creek. Yeah, yeah. I'd the murky draped itself like a forlorn lover. I think I could agree with that. But I think I do think the imagery is beautiful. I'm actually pretty happy with that. Okay, you're saying it's better without forlorn. The murky autumn morning draped itself like a lover. Let's see if you take that. The murky autumn morning draped itself like a lover across the waters of the slow moving creek. Like a forlorn. Let's see, what was whenever I have a determination like that, forlorn, pitifully sad and abandoned or lonely, unlikely to succeed or be fulfilled. So basically you're saying the murky autumn morning is draping itself, is a the murkiness, so the vibe of autumn is pitiful. It's a pitiful vibe, across the waters of the slow moving creek, which essentially, how does an autumn morning be pitiful? Essentially, you're saying it's probably the mist. It's probably the ambiance. The ambiance of the mist has this pitiful feeling. draped across the creek. Yeah, I could see why you would say it would sound better without forlorn, because you're trying to give off, it's like a pit of, you're trying to give off a vibe for it. I think this is one of those things where you could go either way in this in your description. I think I would be fine with forlorn, but as I kind of think about it, I'm like, do I want it? Do I want to feel that it's pitiful? Do I want to feel that this is like a pitiful scene? I mean, technically it's about these two murder victims. So I could see that. I might consider changing it to a different word to have it be a little bit more maybe disparaging more than pitiful. But this is a subjective one. You're picturing someone pouting. And yeah, and I think I would go, I think because it's a murder mystery, I think I would use a word choice that would that would be better, that would resonate better with two mutilated bodies. I think I would pick a word choice that mirrors those just a little better. Oh, from a sounding, it sounds a little less clunky. That's good feedback. Let's see. So perfect, if not for the gruesome reality of two mutilated bodies. Yep, like this part. Despite the double homicide, Alara mused upon the picturesque scene. Her partner, on the other hand, was not seduced by the autumn scene. Her partner, on the other hand, was not seduced by the autumn scene. As an editor, I hate having too many words. I hate having the same word in too close proximity. Was not seduced by the autumn breeze. No, scene would work. There's a better word out there. Let's see. It's too cloudy. Oh, by the way, I loved your setup for Perry. This is like, I feel like I have a very clear image of who Detective Perry is. He is very meticulous about his appearance. He's very much like, he's almost like an actor. He kind of has like this like actor / model vibe of like, it's all about me, my hair. And then of course you have the addition of Enchanted Encounters, the Fey Gentleman's Guide to Forbidden Pleasures. So then it gives that this is essentially our model / actor detective vibe with the sexual undertone. So essentially what it is it's giving him a what's the word? It's giving him like a sexual sex appeal. It's giving him sex appeal, essentially what it is, since we're referencing it. Yeah, and you were saying, I just want to be clear, I only said anything because like a lover just sounds so strong to me. I don't really have a big problem with forlorn per se. I just think there should be no word between. Yeah, and I think Penelope, this is a great call of different subjective opinions. It's like I think I would change forlorn because I think you could use forlorn as a foreshadow, but then Eli's like it doesn't even need that because lover itself is so strong. And I think that's just a great way of getting different types of feedback. And then you as the author get to decide what sounds best. Absolutely agreed. Let's see. And then I liked Perry. I like the bright swirl of colors engulfing her partner. Alara seemed at home in the foreboding atmosphere. You know what's interesting is now, obviously, since we're in episode 3, you may have set up Alara already, but I would recommend because you did such a great job of setting up Perry. I feel like I want the same exact or similar setup, at least the contrasting for Alara. You kind of touch upon it. You kind of touch upon Alara as a character here, right? Unlike the bright swirl colors, Alara seemed at home in her foreboding atmosphere that surrounded her. Great. Gives us a general vibe. Let's see. So she has long black cowboy boots, long black hair cascading in loose waves down her back, partially obscuring the collar of her black leathery motorcycle jacket. The fitted jeans tucked into her skiff boots emphasized her slender frame, and her white t-shirt peeked out from beneath the jacket. Okay. All right. So now I know why it feels different. So with I think this is just an editing recommendation for you, Penelope. You do a lot of imagery in describing Detective Perry. You use a lot of imagery and it works out very well. Alara, you do a lot more telling and less imagery. You're saying this is basically what she looks like. I would say so that way Alara seems as predominant. I would recommend adjusting this to use a little bit more imagery, only so that way it doesn't feel like Perry is the greater one that stands out between the two, since I believe Alara is the protagonist. So I would just adjust this, have a little bit more imagery, only because this paragraph follows directly after this. Otherwise, it almost feels like Alara's setup feels lost to Perry's because his is so big and out there. Hers should almost be extreme, but taken to the exact opposite. You touch upon it in her foreboding at this is good. I want more of this instead of you just telling me what she's wearing, but using imagery to add to this, I think would really serve Alara's character well. Let's see. There's a mix. Izzy Malone. I like the name of Izzy Malone. That sounds like a PD forensic director. And then like your setup with like the crime scene itself is fine. This is just a lot of we're getting to what they think's happening. Though there was very little blood soaking into the earth, the bodies displayed ghastly wounds. Deep gashes with chunks of flesh missing from their torsos, as if something monstrous had torn into them. Okay. So we have two grotesque bodies, man and woman, laying grotesquely, though there was very little blood. So I think the only thing I would add, and this is only because you're painting you want to paint such a picture with them, what what remnants of their clothing can still be seen. I get that there are two bodies, man, woman, grotesquely displayed on the ground, and deep gashes in their stomachs because you want to draw the attention to the gashes. I almost want to know what like is the gash going through like his jacket? Was there or do they not even have clothes because they're on the beach? Or are they just like naked? Or do they have like beach clothing? Or like do they because I think I want to get a sense of like what you could probably set up for what like class, what type of class, lower, middle, upper, were they wearing like in a suit? Because the vibe for a man and woman in a tuxedo and a gown and like a ball gown is going to be completely different than two naked bodies. So I think I would just add that little description in between here since you do want to paint such a clear image and then use their what they're dressing or use whatever's left on them, whether they have something or nothing, to then point that to the flesh. I think that would help paint an even stronger picture. Hey, what's up, Neil? Welcome, welcome, my friend. No, but you're like, okay, the Tuttle Creek Manatee is like our only homegrown cryptid. He's getting a cameo. He's getting a cameo. Okay. So the way to do that, Penelope, if you want to have him do a cameo, tie in the manatee into the story somehow. Do it as use the manatee as some type of foreshadowing, or use the manatee as a comedic moment. Only because I would say you want to get to the murder. I would reference the manatee maybe later on, or maybe Perry or one of them is thinking about the murder mystery, and he spots a manatee in the distance and then makes him think about the Tuttle Creek manatee. I would still cameo it because that's funny, but I would just cameo it a little differently. And it sounds like Eli really likes that, Penelope. So that's some really great feedback. Absolutely. Yeah, let's say it's got strong elements of paranormal romance. So I like to draw those images into the scene, especially when they're not going on in that scene to keep the plate spinning. Yep, yep, yep. You said it's Perry's story. That makes so much sense. I assume because Perry and Alara, I assume love spell, but that actually makes sense that it's Perry. Mhm. So that actually, since it is Perry's story, then I'm actually not opposed to the way you set her up. It just right now it seems like Perry is the awesome one and Alara is kind of like the dark one. I think you can up her darkness just a little bit, so there's a better contrast between the two. Yeah, I got the CSI vibes too, Eli. I actually got the CSI vibes too. Those like those there's very specific glasses. Yeah, and I think Izzy as a character works. Izzy is kind of more like a backdrop to them to really further the plot for the most part. Um, if you want it right now, Izzy kind of doesn't have too much of a personality. She kind of feels like she's a little bit more of a device to help further the plot. If you wanted to make her interesting, I would maybe give her a little bit more. But right now, she just kind of comes across as like she's the lead and she's there to give information. It's not necessarily a bad thing because you probably want the focus on Perry, but just something to be aware of. Yeah, it's almost like I kind of want like Izzy to have some type of quirk because Perry is such a big personality and Alara is such a big personality. It almost feels like that I want all the characters in this world to have like these personalities for whatever reason. I feel like Izzy should have some type of quirk. And maybe she does, and maybe I lost it, or maybe it's just not expressed in this section. The plot itself is fine. The plot itself works well. I don't really have any problems with the plot because it's a very straightforward like murder mystery, and there's enough foreshadowing and elements where like, yeah, I want to know who are they. Essentially, they're trying to figure it out. I totally like you painted the picture for this very well. You did such a good job of setting up the scene, the overall scene, and the characters that I feel like I'm able to take this journey with them and figure out like, okay, well, which monster, which dog or monster creature killed one of them. I know, I know. That's with a name like that, how could she not be quirky? I know, that's what I want. Let's see. They got seduced and violence in the previous, so the reader has met. Okay, cool. Yeah, which is kind of what I figured since we're in chapter 3 right now. So that actually makes sense. Izzy moonlights as a Dom, which is how I introduced her in Love Spell. Oh my god, that's absolutely hilarious. Okay, that's cool. As long since you've already set up her character, then that's fine. Then if that is the case, if she is a Dom, then I want her to make reference. I want her to make subtle references her reference if she is a dom and like that's like her thing, and it doesn't have to be anything that anybody in the scene has to pick up on, but I think it should be something that's instilled in her personality, so anytime she's there it's still an undertone. That's I'd recommend that then, so that way even though like in this scene I might not be able to pick up that she's a dom, I should still be able to get a hint that there's something about her that is maybe sexual in nature or something about her that is in that direction. Even if it's her trying to hide it, even if she's, and like you could do the thing of like, oh, she has two very distinct personalities, that she has the work side and then she has the dom side. Like she could be that type of person, but then if that's the case, then you basically play into that she is very like she's an extreme of like this is her police side, to a point where it's unnatural. Yeah, I think that'd be fun actually. That's really funny. Yeah, I would see that. I would actually I agree with Courtney's comment. If she's a dom, it does make me think that she has to be in control. No, he bats for the other team, but the photographer and Izzy are close. I like that. But yeah, I would say that if she is a dom, she probably has control issues. So my guess is, I mean, she's obviously the head of the PD, but I would then without take weeks, you don't want to pull focus from Perry and Alara because that's done well now. But I would still have try to include a couple of moments where you show her like basically taking back control, and probably through dialogue, so that way you don't pull too much attention from Perry and Alara. But I would still say give her some type of dialogue that shows that she's a little control freak. Interesting. Perry pushed the fear edging toward him. He glanced around wildly for anything to distract him. This would be a part where I would cameo or turtle for anything to distract him. He saw a passing turtle. He thought he spotted the passing tut turtle or whatever the turtle was called. Reference it, but then no, he just saw a Greek key. Actually, this would be the cameo. Cameo him thinking he saw the turtle, but that because that's something he could play with, but no, it's actually the turtle which made him spot the key. The Tuttle Creek manatee. It's a manatee, not a turtle. Manatee. And I keep thinking turtle. I hear Tuttle and I keep thinking turtle. No, I can no longer think of this without thinking turtle anymore. The Tuttle Creek manatee. But reference the manatee here. I think this would be the way. So then you actually get to have the manatee part of technically helping them solve the problem, which makes it a little bit more ingrained. I love the pendant symbol. The pendant symbol is super cool. A crescent moon cradling a double-bladed axe. Love that. Double-bladed axe, crescent moon. Love it. Very clear. Absolutely love that. Just this last bit here. This is just a POV, and this could have been just because this was the ending, but this is just a POV swap. Alara took the bag from her partner. Her fingers brushed the cool plastic as she closed her eyes. I mean, okay, technically this isn't. So her fingers brushed the cool plastic as she closed her eyes. So it feels like this is Alara's POV. It's suggested, but it's not. It could be debatable. The pen. I think we're in Perry's when all the answers are at a dead end. So he would turn to his partner. Oh, yeah, so this is where in Perry's POV. Alara took the bag from her partner. Technically we're still in Perry's POV, but it's subjective. And then you go to Izzy turned away. She depended on Kodar's science. So this is a clear POV switch. You can switch to Izzy. I would Izzy turned away. Unless you're going to spend some time developing Izzy right now, I would recommend sticking to Perry and Alara, only so that way you don't pull focus. Unless you want to end the chapter on Izzy, that would be my recommendation. If you're going to end the chapter on Izzy, keeping her POV the rest of the way. But if you're going to continue alternating, stick with Perry and Alara, only so that way you don't pull focus from them and you don't chance confusing the reader. Because you've done a really good job of going back and forth so far up until this point. But I like this. She depended on Kodite science and had always struggled with Lara. So this is interesting. It's very interesting just from a POV perspective. I would say just something to be aware of. I never actually saw True Detective, but I heard really good things about it. Yeah, that's what I would recommend. If you want to spend time with Izzy here, you can. It just depends on what you want the focus to be. So you could have fun with Izzy. I actually wouldn't be. I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be. I would be all right with you doing Izzy. I just think if we're near the end of the chapter, you should have Izzy be the rest of the chapter because Izzy's an interesting character. And it's actually interesting of the fact that she's essentially taking control of the POV. You could actually probably play around with this. You could probably do something that's fourth wallish if you really wanted to, with her being a dominant control freak. But I would have her taking over the narrative if this is near the end of the chapter and have her POV the rest of it. Awesome. And Penelope, that's all that I got from you. Good little story. Absolutely love it. I always have fun diving into Alara and Perry, our two lovable detectives and their mystery. Very, very fun. Very, very fun. So thanks again, my friend. That was excellent. Ooh, man. So that was awesome. And I see we're chatting about some TV shows. I'm curious. It's kind of like TV's on our mind. Are there any good, what would you guys say are some of your favorite, maybe like detective shows or mystery? As we're kind of thinking about mystery, any good mystery shows that you guys would recommend? I would love to hear if there's any mystery shows that really stood out to you, maybe from the characters, maybe from the world or the mystery itself. I would love to hear if there's any mystery shows that you would recommend to the community. My um, one that I watched over the past couple of years, I think it's called From. I think it's called From. I always mix up From. One of my favorite mystery shows from the past couple of years is called From. It's amazing. Same creators as Lost. And I love that type of like maybe like creepy, it could be purgatory type world vibe. Highly recommend From. It's very dark and I love it. Yeah, so I would recognize that as a mystery. You guys, Shoki, Death Note's my favorite anime of all time, by the way. Absolute favorite anime of all time. Death Note. I love Light as a protagonist. Love Kira. Love all the characters in Death Note. Always be my favorite. I wish they did it more justice when they did the US adaptation, but maybe they'll do another adaptation 10 years and it'll be better. Dark was really good. Dark was really, really good. Dark was probably one of my favorite non US shows that I've seen before because it was just so well done. Mulholland Drive was actually really good. It's been a while since I've seen Mulholland Drive. That's a great film. Dexter, who doesn't love our anti-hero blood splatterist? And I think what I did like about Dexter is the original ending of the series sucked. They did the miniseries, and the miniseries that did a much better justice for ending Dexter as a character. Absolutely loved it. Was really happy with how. I'm so glad they did the miniseries. I think it was Cold Blood or something like that. Way, way better. Twin Peaks, awesome. Absolutely love Twin Peaks. Westworld was great. I didn't go all the way through Westworld. I think I didn't finish the last season or two because I just caught up to it, but Westworld was really cool. Westworld was one of those shows like Lost where you had to pay a lot of attention or else you could easily miss things. A long time ago, Columbo, Midsummer Murders. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one, but when I hear Midsummer, I think of the horror movie Midsummer, which was super creepy. Midsummer was like a creepy movie. It was like a creepy cult movie. I haven't. Life action. Is that an anime or is that like a horror movie or a TV show? Mindhunter was good. That was one of the ones I was very disappointed that they canceled it. I was very disappointed that they canceled Mindhunter because I actually thought that it had good potential. Psych. Psych probably goes. I think Psych would probably go under one of my all-time favorites for comedy mystery. I think Psych was definitely one of my favorites for comedy mystery. I think I would say. And that theme song always stuck in my head because we'll psych them out in the end. Because who doesn't love a show about a psychic moonlighting as a detective? like, Psych was a lot of fun. I absolutely loved it. Yep, Hound of the Baskervilles, absolute classic. Absolutely loved that one. Yeah, y'all are definitely recommending some really great ones. Yeah, like disappointing cancellation was Raised by Wolves. I didn't see Raised by Wolves, but I did hear good things about it. It always sucks when we find a good TV show or a good movie or a good, I mean, book is a little bit more debatable, but it sucks when we see a piece of media and it gets canceled. That's always really frustrating, especially for TV shows. Disappointing. Absolutely. I was like, I'm trying to think if there's any others. Yeah. Always on the lookout for a good mystery TV show. Yeah, that always has a really great mystery. I'm trying to think if there's any other ones that I've seen lately, but I think From's the only one that I've really watched as of late. Yeah. I liked, and this one is less mystery. I like Yellow Jackets. It's a little bit more younger because I like the Lord of the Flies. I'm a huge fan of Lord of the Flies, so I really liked Yellow Jackets and what they were trying to do with them. Can't wait for the 50th Marvel franchise. Oh, that's funny. Movie Rear Window was a great movie. Rear Window, talk about a great way of doing an anti-hero. And Rear Window was early on for anti-heroes too. It's definitely very early on for the anti-hero genre. Awesome. Well, you guys are definitely suggesting some great recommendations. So let's hop into the next one. So what do I got next? Scroll. So Scroll, where are you at, Scroll? So we're going to hop into the witch manga. So this is a witch manga. It's a dark fantasy from Skrolreaper. So I have yours queued up next, my friend. Now, Scrolls is going to be a little bit more asking for feedback. I usually don't take these ones for the critique show because I don't know if they always work as well, but we'll try it out because there is a little bit written and we'll see what we can do to help Scroll out here. Scroll, absolutely. We're going to see what we can do to help you out, my friend. But in the meantime, for those of you who don't know, I'm sure all of you guys do, let's do a quick shout out to our Freaky Friday Flash Fiction competition. Clearly, all of you finalists, this has been such an incredible, incredible fun competition. And we got much, much more in store for you. So definitely going to make sure to check it out. Tell all your friends about the Freaky Friday Flash Fiction competition this coming Friday, October 5th and Saturday, October 26th. Bring a friend, tell your family. Let's make this the biggest Halloween writing event of the year. And we're going to be doing the live voting of your finalists, of your guys' stories. So bring as many people, convince them to come vote for you. Hopefully, vote on the stories that you think are the best. But hey, if I put my story out, if I put my own story into a competition, you'd know I'd probably be voting for my own story. So like I know what it is. I know how it feels. I know how voting usually goes. So definitely tell your friends about it. We'll be setting up the event shortly. I'll make sure to start posting the event probably on Monday. As I've been thinking about stories, we'll be advertising the event links, we'll be advertising the stories with the promos. We will be doing a lot of advertisement so that way you guys can share your stories that you guys want to share. Bring a friend. It will be excellent, excellent, excellent. So that way we can draw as much attraction, make this an excellent, fun competition. And then don't forget, we're going to be doing a Halloween contest. Not contest, it'll be more like a Halloween like vibe. Halloween pre-party. Let's say Halloween pre-party before the competition on, I don't think we've decided on a date yet. I think I was thinking Friday originally, but maybe it might be Saturday. I know we started a poll. We'll be doing the Halloween, so make sure you have your costume prepared because let me tell you, I got mine prepared. I'm stoked about it. And we know Jezebel, like Jezebel is going to be, she's going to be judging you. So let's see if we can up our game. So our Freaky Friday Flash Fiction competition. This has been such a journey, and I'm definitely looking forward to what next weekend has in store for us. All right, all right, all right. Scroll. So yeah, let me pull up your thing. So Scroll, I got you here. So let's see. We got your banner. So for Scroll, so it looks like you're developing a witch manga and it's a dark fantasy. So dark fantasy witch manga, which is super cool. I mean, that's really awesome. I know we definitely have some manga fans in the community. So let's see if we can hopefully give some good feedback for Scroll. Now, it looks like the tone that you're going for is like Game of Thrones. The stories in this world feature possibly brutal, gruesome deaths, complex characters, and morally ambiguous decisions. There's no guarantee of safety for any character, and the stakes are high. So, not so much like GOT. but it can get really dark. Okay. So brutal, dark, but not in the same fantastical sense as GOT, Game of Thrones. Awesome. Okay, and it looks like we have a little bit of, we have a brief chapter excerpt. So let's see what we got with our chapter. Okay. Chapter 1. Side note, the dream she wakes up from, I think, might be reserved for a character in the distant future who is shackled. They tap into ancient magic to break free, and they end up accidentally awakening an automaton or ancient evil that kills maybe, not sure, but an idea. Learn my magic and you can break free. The last words Ilara heard as she woke. She had been having recurring dreams the past few months similar. Ilara! Her mother yelled. Come help your father herd the cattle. Being the middle child, her older sister had moved to the nearby town to train in the magical arts. Illyria now took Azelin's role as the training dummy. As usual, she would cast a spell of shepherding and lead the cattle on. Her father would scold her for taking shortcuts, and she would have to do it again the non-magic way. The town of Foresaw was a simple one, with a belief of balance and only using magic as a form of necessity and not leisure. People often moved to the bigger town further away, where use of automatons was commonplace and more open-minded views on magic was common. Talk of this looked down, and more open-minded views on magic was common. Talk of this was looked down upon by the elders as it broke the balance, and fear of losing sight of nature. Okay, so it looks like end reading. So it looks like that's what we have for the brief, for the what you have so far for the story excerpt. And then you had some brainstorming ideas. So right now, some of your ideas for are witches who turn brooms into motorcycles in New York, like modern big cities. Witches would wear hoodies, headphones, and different headgear instead of old witch hats. Okay, so going more that science fiction vibe instead of the witch look, but still making them witches. So it's almost like technological witches. And they would have high speed, high tech motorcycles, and they would have little familiars who act as a phone case and fly around and allow selfies this way. Interesting. So it's almost like science fiction witches. It feels like the vibe that you're going for. In rural towns, there would be traditional hat wearing witches. Covens would rule the towns, and conservative beliefs would be strong. Maybe opportunity for a young witch trying to leave the conservative town. They follow traditional beliefs, but the young witch challenges them by saying, you want to go traditional, I'll go ancient. And she studies the ancient arts, who at times were much more liberal, but the ancient times had a cataclysm. Maybe this is what stemmed more conservative traditions. There would be cities nearby the rural towns that are a mix of big city rural vibes. So witches would wear traditional witch hats, but also they would have them ornamented with pins and such, kind of like Crocs. Okay. Different types of witches who use spell books, wands, scrolls, but in unique ways. Unique use for witches, character design opportunities, etc. Scroll tubes wrapped around a huge body to look like a kamikaze about to explode. Scrolls intertwined into the outfit. That would actually be kind of a cool look. The scrolls intertwined into the outfit like that. Different factions could have fashionable or practical mix of both clothes. A letterman with two scrolls hanging off the shoulders, maybe rewritable scrolls. A Grim Reaper-esque tattered robes full of scroll writing, parchment wrapped around the robes, wands. Someone has wand piercings that are used to augment many areas and turn them into more enhanced spellcaster. Maybe dinosaurs in the manga like Dragon Ball. I mean, okay, so I have a couple thoughts and everything. I want to hear what all your thoughts are so far. Also, automatons like in Nier, waifu automatons and helper automatons, possibly for corruption. The world is divided between those who adhere to old conservative magical traditions, coven towns and tribal lands, and those who embrace magic fused with technology. Okay, so I like some of your ideas for this universe so far. I totally am getting the vibe of I love the direction you're thinking of with the witches. I think it's cool of you maybe setting up this contrast between these more like technological, like new age witches with like these like instead of broomsticks, it's like basically tech. You're basically relying on tech. Their familiars are basically like phones or like technological piece like devices. Um, when I think of automaton, I'm not quite. What is an automaton? That's like a giant robot, isn't it? Automaton. Yeah, a moving mechanical device. I almost feel like the automatons should be like witches' familiars. I feel, or maybe, I mean, you could go like automatons being the robots, being like robots of the world, but it feels like in the cities, the robot should be in control of the automatons and the technology. And maybe you can do like automatons rise up and they could, maybe we have some like ancient evil automaton, which maybe like you could do a sci-fi thing, have an automaton basically maybe fused with some ancient magic somehow, and basically as could become the big bad, or you can maybe have an evil witch of some type. I like the contrast with the rural, these more like the rural witches where you get more traditional witchcraft, which I love that. I would play into that being more on the creepy vibe. I would make sure to do your research on what traditional witchcraft looks like. I would definitely play into Wiccan culture, definitely make that as realistic as possible and make it a very clear contrast between the technological new age witches and then the more traditional like Wiccan culture of witches. And then you can have that divide between this like the ancient witchcraft, which is like a dark one, which I love. You're going with that cataclysmic vibe. um you mentioned a thing with dinosaurs. I don't think I would go dinosaurs unless you're going to make them like familiars. Or maybe you could do that. Maybe the familiars of witches in the liberal, these rural areas could be more like their actual animals and their live creatures, kind of like dinosaurs, but it will like dinosaur like creatures. But then it would be a great contrast to the ones in the cities and the towns where they're like basically like flying cell phones, so to speak. I think that would actually be a really cool contrast. So I think that'd be really cool. Let me say, I know it looks like people had some great comments here. Eli was saying, is there a thematic reason that the story has to open with a Char waking up? I don't think it's inherently a bad thing, but it's definitely cliche to start the story with the Char waking up. Is there a thematic reason the story has to open up with the Char waking up? I don't think it's inherently a bad thing, but it's definitely cliche to start the story with. Yeah, I mean, it is a very traditional thing for Char, for the main character to start with waking up. It is that concept is used a lot. You could get away with it. I think it just depends. I think it depends on what you want your character journey to be. If you started with her waking up, I would have her, what was some voice was speaking to her. What was the voice? I would, if you wanted to start with her waking up, whatever said to her in the dream should be really off-putting. I think that's how I would start. That's how I would do it differently. I would have whatever's being said to her, like maybe very demonic or maybe very like evil, like maybe it's coming from this ancient evil magic, and have it be a one word that is like very like make it very visual, very image, use some type of imagery, but make it very, very dark. And I think that's how I would do if you want to go with her waking up. Oh, by the way, I just saw your comment, Nil, but Brick is a great, 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 great movie, by the way. Let's see. I've had characters wake up at the beginning of chapters. It's not just automatically bad. It has to be for a good reason. Yep. Yeah, you just have to be intentional with it. And I think if you're having them wake up, then essentially, and because you're relying on it seems like you're kind of having her wake up from the end of a dream, then you really want the dream to be impactful. And I think this is the point right here. So I think you really want to do some research on witch culture. Maybe you've done some, or maybe you haven't yet. But I would definitely say definitely do research on witch culture. So that way, if you go with the liberal or with like the witches in like these rural towns, make them like very true to Wiccan or witch culture. I think that would be the way to do it. You want, so it feels very believable against the stark contrast of the new age witches. Grim Reaper. Yeah, I think the Grim Reaper bit could be cool. I think if you incorporate some type of Grim Reaper element, that could be a lot of fun. I think using the Grim Reaper, whether or not you want to make the Grim Reaper a character, whether you want to just make them a force or you want to make them an idea, yeah, I think doing something with the Grim Reaper could be super fun. Whether it's with the ancient evil magic or the traditional, I think you could take it in a lot of directions. Yeah, that I because I know I've seen automatons. I was just trying to visualize what it was. Kind of like the Zelda Breath of the Wild. That makes sense. That totally makes sense. Yeah, I think if you go with automatons, I think they should be the basis for the city type societies. I think they should be kind of like the robots, so to speak, of maybe witches rely on them for everything. I think that'd be the way that I'd go with it. So that way that the city automaton stands out in stark contrast to the rural ones. Or maybe the rural ones, you have a different type of automaton, but there's such a like maybe the automatons in the rural ones are more lifelike. You could do that. You could do something that's more like a robot versus like a cyborg. You could go something in that direction with an automaton if you really wanted to. Bioshock's a great game, by the way. I look by as a side note, looking forward to the Bioshock. I think it's a movie. I forgot if it's a movie or a TV series. I'm really hoping that they do it justice. But Bioshock is a cool universe. It sounds like from what Shulk is saying is there's a really good Warhammer 40k vibe with the witches. Might give you some ideas, especially because you're saying you want this to be a witch manga, which means that the visualization is going to be so important. So probably checking out some of that 40k the witch stuff might be very helpful. Yeah, it sounds like school. It sounds like Shulk might be a really good resource. Absolutely. So definitely make sure you connect over definitely in school, make sure you connect over the Right Now Discord. Hey, what's up, Thousand? Welcome, welcome, my friend. How do you best transition into a dream? That is a really great question. So, I wouldn't say that there is a right or wrong way to transition into it. I think what you want to ask yourself is what type of reading experience do you want your reader to have in the transition? For example, do you want the dream to be the start of a dream? Do you want the reader to know, okay, this is a dream? If you want your reader to be very aware of like this is a dream, then usually you have the character doing whatever motions and then they go to sleep and they start experiencing some weird dream state. If you want the reader to know it's a dream and you want that to be a clear transition. If you do not want your reader to know it's a dream, then wherever your last scene break is, maybe your character fell unconscious, maybe your character was doing some action, you're just going to skip time, then you could just jump straight into the dream state. But based on your character, based on how you're describing it, you want to make sure that usually you start out in some sort of normal feeling dynamic, and then you add layer by layer weird things that happen. The weird things that happen, and then you ask yourself, do you want your reader to know immediately it's a dream? Do you want them to still be like kind of guessing? And do you want them to guess? Maybe you don't want them to know it's a dream till like the crazy thing happens. Then you would foreshadow like character wakes up in a bed. Okay. Character turns over to their best friend. Oh yeah, all right, their best friend, they're talking with each other. Great. And then their best friend holds out a flower. All right, that's normal. Then they go into the next room and suddenly their dad is there with a giving them cookies. Like, okay, well, my dad's dead, but sure. Okay, go there. And then they go to the next room and their cat has an axe. Oh wow, okay, clearly they're in a dream. So I think it's all about the using which elements you want to incorporate it, and it's figuring out what type of dream you want to have. So, like, if you don't want your reader to know, then you want the surprise, you want the transition to be abrupt before the dream because you don't want them to know it's a dream. So it really comes down to the into what your intent with it is, Thousand. I hope that answered your question. Definitely let me know if it didn't. Yeah, I think the layering would be really fun. It's like if you're wanting to do something creepy, I would go with layering. I would definitely go with the layering effect. Usually, the scene that precedes it, do some type of abrupt cutoff or whatever the last character is. So you lead the reader into thinking, okay, you don't want the reader to know it's a dream originally, but you need the reader to know it's a dream by a certain point. If they get to the end and they don't know it's a dream, then that's a problem. You want the reader to know at what point do I want them to know this is a dream, and then you just lay like cookie crumbs so that way the reader gets to experience this cool dream state. I love dream theory, so I think dreams are really cool. Great question, by the way. This is a good point. So Eli's like, in my book, I wrote one I'm really happy with, but it's super plain and simple. His dreams were strange. Right. And this could be if you just want to like reference the dream overall. And that way you're basically, you are setting up the dream, right? So that would probably be an example of you want the reader to know it's a dream beforehand. And that's just another strategy of going about it. And essentially, if the reader knows it's a dream, then essentially you're exploring character, you're basically doing character development because you want, as the reader, to explore, like, oh, well, what are they going to dream about? I know it's a dream. How weird is this dream going to get for this character? It's you basically go that direction. As a reader, why do we need a dream? But that could be genre related. And so, Courtney, that's a great question. I'm very familiar with dreams as they're used generally in sci-fi, fantasy, and a lot of fiction. I mean, okay, so let me speak to romance. So let me speak to your genre, Courtney. Um, let's say that you could have a character. Let's say you have a character who's in love with somebody and they don't know how to express it. You could use a dream for them to have like their wildest fantasy and then to explore their fantasy, but then to wake up in the middle and then to be like shook, or maybe they're really into it. And you could use the dream as a way to explore something that the character is not able to fully express. I think that's something how I would go about it in romance. Or maybe the person they're in love with in their dream kills them, right? And then you could do it as a way to do fear. I think, and this is just as I'm thinking of some ideas in the romance genre, I think that's how I would go about it. But essentially, dreams are another tool. Don't be over reliant on dreams unless your entire story is about dreaming. Dreams, like everything else, is another tool for you to explore character development. Dreams are a little less world building focus unless your world is about dreaming, but dreams is essentially another tool to explore character development in a way that can become more fantastical. If your story takes place in the real world, a dream allows you to do fantastical things because you're in the real world. But in a dream world, anything can happen. Or maybe in a fantastical world, the dream is a very normal dream and it's a stark contrast to the fantastical world. So that's kind of how I would think about dreaming. Yeah. One of my favorite movies of all time, favorite movie of all time is Inception. Dream within a dream within a dream. All time favorite movie. Probably my other one would be V for Vendetta, but I would say Inception as I'm thinking about dream and dream theory, like absolutely does a phenomenal job of exploring dreams from a visual standpoint. You're like, in my personal experience, describing falling asleep and images appearing as they start to dream, or have the dreamer make the reader aware it's a dream by describing things that are impossible. And I don't think there's a right or wrong way to go about doing dreams. I think you just have to figure out what your intent is with them. What the writer said. Woo! Eli, I think they give a radically symbolic view of a character's life. Yep, I would agree with that. It's a space where you can change the style of the narrative in a way the audience doesn't feel so jarring. I agree. Completely agreed with that, Eli. That's a great way of framing it. Maybe the dinosaurs could be how the witches project their magic. Rather than have a beam of magic from their wand, they summon creatures. Oh, that's actually kind of interesting. That's actually kind of interesting, actually. Using like that would be what a different way. So then these would be witches that would have to rely on familiars for their magic to work. Oh, I really like that. I think there's something there where the witches would have to rely on the familiars as their sources of magic for their own magic to work. That'd be super cool. And I think with the technological witches, technologic, that one's a little bit more evident. But maybe if you had them, like you could use these like dinosaur creatures, and maybe the creatures themselves have the magic, or maybe it's just the witches. But I think some type of symbiosis there would be cool. Subscribed. Oh, I appreciate that, my friend. Glad to have you. Welcome to the community. And yeah, it's like we're having a great conversation. And this is probably a great time. If you're enjoying the stream, follow and subscribe every day with the Right Now community with daily writing motivation. And clearly, we're having a fun time with world building and talking about dream theory today. But we always got something going. So whether you not you want to just subscribe and follow us in the Right Now community, we got the Discord, we got writing events, we got it all. So tap those buttons and you'll be alerted when we go live. All right, so I felt like that was a good timing. So let's see. Awesome. And you said the piercings affect the wand. Is it piercing on the witch or charm on the wand? Yeah, I think that would be interesting. Scroll is like, I'm considering witches using some sort of device to augment spells, but maybe not necessary. So wands would be to augment or channel, but so would spell book scrolls, etc. Yeah, I mean, you have this thing with scrolls interwoven with their clothing. What if you did a way, and this is like such a manga thing, what if you did a way where they had to use the scrolls that are on their bodies as their spells? Like maybe they can like pull off the scrolls, and this feels like such a manga vibe, but they would pull off like the scrolls, and the scrolls is like how they could read if you wanted them to do some type of like reading from spells, and then they go on. Or maybe the scrolls could be some types of like different magic. That could be another great way to go about it. Scroll. Well, welcome to YouTube over from the Twitch side, my friend. Glad to have you over here. You can see, like I said, well, we stream to the different platforms. The YouTube community, because of the live streaming aspect of it, is where the core of our community tends to hang out. Outside, and then outside the live streams, it's the Discord's grown very active. Mm. My comment was that some readers aren't into reading about dreams as a thing to consider. That's actually interesting. That's a very interesting thing to note. And I think when thinking about that, I think you would want to ask yourself what genre conventions are. So I think the biggest thing is genre conventions. And this is why I'm not as familiar with dreaming. Dreaming in regards to romance conventions is the tool of dreaming. How often is it used? If it's not really used as a tool, like in fantasy and sci-fi stories, dreaming as a tool is used all the time. So research genre conventions. Also ask your readership. Be like, hey, I'm thinking about including this part. Would you want to hear a dream? Get feedback. That's another great way to think about like, oh, okay, should I do dream sequences? Like 1,000. You're like, I'm writing a coming of age. The dreams augur. Let's see. The dreams sometimes augur things show the changing perception of the character or add backstory. That's not entirely true, but a blend of sensations. That's actually kind of interesting. It's actually kind of interesting, but a blend of sensations. So you're kind of using it to kind of like make a feeling of how the character's like how the character might be like transitioning into a new character or how they're maybe evolving or adapting throughout the story. That'd be interesting. I'm like thinking of my story. I'm like with Scarecrow. Do I do dreams? I mean, in because I'm working on this for those of you who don't know and are new to the community. I'm working on a dark fantasy novel called The Last Scarecrow, and I'm asking myself, I don't think I have any dreams in it. I mean, no, I do. I have there's one dream sequence, but the sequence is actually a result of a world and magic effect. So I do have one dream sequence, but most of the other sequences are like flashbacks. To an extent, it's more like memory flashbacks, but it's a part of the magical ability. But yeah, I don't think I really have relied on dreams in that first story as much as a storytelling device. From True Detectives, I don't sleep, I just dream. You guys crack me up. No, I know you do, but I always think because I know romance is a big genre for you, so that's why I always think of romance, especially because with your first one being getting dark romance. So I know that as your main one. Courtney, what you need to do is you need to go into the Discord, the book one, and post what your top 10 like favorite books are. Eli and me, like Eli started the trend, and I actually really like that. You should post what your favorites are. I'd love to hear what some of your other favorite books are outside of or just in general. You should totally do that. We should like have a list because I was like, I don't think I've posted my books before. And I did that, was that a couple of days ago. And I really had to think, I'm like, what are my favorite books? Because I've been reading so many nonfiction the past couple of years. So I just haven't done as much fiction, even though I love fiction. Most of my books I've been reading the past couple of years have been more on the self-help side for spiritual, financial, and business. Courtney, like, yeah, I struggle finding just 10. For top 10, Courtney, you got to find the top 10. Think about it really hard. I'm sure you have like a list of 100 favorites, but top 10, if you could figure it out, I believe in you. I'd be really curious to see what your favorites are, though. For me, I tried to find a mix of some of my more modern, classic, and a mix in between. I tried to find a good range. Scroll. You're like, that could be very cool with the ripping off scrolls. Since this will be manga, the visuals will help with a lot of context. So I think dreams could be fun to work in. I don't mean to rely on it. Yeah, and especially with manga. I mean, does manga use dreams a lot? I'm trying to think. I mean, think of anime. I mean, anime will use dreams as a tool in general. They will, but I think the visualization of the scrolls will definitely work regardless. I, I just like the idea of an entity or something calling from another realm, something like that. Maybe there are like 5 different ancient beasts that different factions draw power from. That could be really cool. That could be really cool. So you could center it around like five like major like ancient creatures, and then have those be the sources of magic. That could be a lot of fun. I'd totally be down. I think that would be a cool one. Dreams in a witch type manga work really well. In most Wiccan spirituality, dreams aren't images, they're transference to a different realm, right? And you say, once again, Scroll, I think Shulke is your should be your go-to. So it sounds like Shulke has a lot of knowledge, clearly, and familiarity, especially with Wiccan culture, which is really cool, really badass. Really good nonfiction book is Godel, Escher, Bach, An Eternal Golden Braid. Thanks for the recommendation, Eli. I'll check it out. Soul Eater. I know I see a lot of references to Soul Eater. It's not, I haven't seen Soul Eater before, but maybe I'll check it out at some point. I always alternate between like the things I watch. Granted, I haven't really started many new things this past year because I'm like so busy. But previously I would usually alternate between like a movie, TV show, and anime would be just one of those things that I'd alternate every once in a while. 1,000. You're like, got a stupid question. I'm a non-native English speaker, but I think my grasp of the language is halfway decent. I'm gonna be honest. If you hadn't have even said that you were a non-native English speaker, I would never have guessed. Just based off how you framed your questions and statements so far. But yeah, I just wanted to put that out there. How many fiction books must I read in my genre before I can be okay writing? I know it's a feel thing, but after every book I read, I feel I can never do better than that. So, the great question. So what I would say is you don't I would think about it like don't compare yourself to any of the books. That your biggest the biggest challenge here and the biggest mistake you're making is by comparing yourself to books that you've read, because essentially what you're doing is you're setting up these goals of like, oh, I have to be as good as this, or my story needs to match this. But the truth is, the writer, the author of that book, you're taking a snapshot of that author's journey and you're not comparing their entire lifetime of experience to your own. You are on a different journey than wherever that author was, which is why we want to use books as like research. We can use it as research to understand genre conventions. We can use it to improve our word choice, but don't make the mistake of comparing yourself to the author. You should feel free to start writing your book whenever you want, because the great thing is the only way we can get better as writers is to just write. So I'd actually encourage you, Thousand, to just start writing. Like if you have a cool story idea, now there's the plotters and the pantsers, right? You could start plotting out some cool ideas for it, or you could just start writing it and just start seeing what comes. But I'd recommend just start writing. I would say just like join us in one of our writing sprints. During the week, we do writing sprints every day. Monday, so tomorrow is our podcast. Monday is our update. So Tuesday will be our next writing stream. So I would say come join us in some writing sprints if you ever want like motivation. You could always hop into the Discord if you want to go do writing sprints with others. But I would say that just try writing. See if there's like, I'm curious. I'm very curious. Do you have any ideas for something that you would like to write? And be okay with your writing. Maybe it sucks, or maybe it's great. But the truth is, you won't know until you start. And I would say what you should do is just sit down, write, see what comes out for the first like draft, and know that the first draft of a book for every author in the history of time is probably not going to be that great. First drafts are not designed to be awesome. They're designed for you to get out your ideas, experiment, try different things, try out things that might work, things that might fail, because it's going to go through different drafts throughout the process, and you can always fix the problems later. You can, for all you know, you might start writing some things in it, and you might start writing a really cool character, but maybe it's something about it feels off, but you might figure out more of the world the more you write the story. Or maybe you just want to start out by writing like a free write and doing like short stories and seeing things that work out well for you. So I'm such a proponent of just start writing, have fun with it, and see what comes, because you have a natural intrinsic creative sense, which is unique to you. Tap into that and see what comes out of it. And then you get to explore and see like, hey, maybe it'll be great. Maybe it won't be. But the great thing is you get to improve the more you write. So I'm such a proponent of that. So let's see. I've abandoned 3 stories, finished 2, editing the last one for the past 3 months. Just effing long and well. It makes me question if I'm in the right line of work. So, I mean, that's a great question. I've abandoned 3 stories, finished 2, editing the last one for the past 3 months. It's just effing long and well. It makes me question if, so, I mean, I think the question that you want to ask yourself is, it almost sounds like you feel a little burnt out. That's actually kind of the vibe that I'm getting. It almost feels like that you might want to take a couple of days, or take maybe like a week or a couple of weeks, and just step away from just writing, and then just allow yourself, like ask yourself, what about writing do you love? Because if you get to the point in writing where you feel like it's a chore, where you feel like, oh, it's feeling like it's an obligation, that's when writers get burnt out and they keep pushing themselves, and then they just stop one day, and then they stop for years. And I don't want that to happen to you, right? You can avoid getting burnt out if you give yourself the opportunity to breathe, understand what is it about the writing process that I love, and then also recognizing that writing, it just takes time. And clearly it sounds like you finished some stories. It sounds like you've had your share of writing experience, but recognizing, it takes time. And then B, understanding what is your goal as a writer. If you're clear on what your goal is, like for instance, your goal could be just like, I just want to write and have fun. And then that means your expectations should be, I'm just going to write and have fun, and I'm not going to worry about the end result. That allows you to just enjoy the journey. If your goal is, I want to make money, then the expectation should be, it takes time to write a book, and it's a process. And you have to recognize, how long will that take me to go throughout this process? And I totally get it. I have probably well over 50 projects in my catalog, and I spent so many years starting projects, going through different drafts, not finishing them, and I totally understand. And I felt burnt out a lot because I pushed myself and I wasn't honest with myself. on what was holding me back. It took me a long while to get to this point in my life where I could be all right with myself, not feel like I was a failure as a writer, and just enjoy the process. And I show that every day on the live streams. So I totally understand being burnt out. It sounds like part of it might be a motivation problem, might be a motivation issue for you, 1,000. And then maybe, yeah, I think you just need to step back and just ask yourself and understand why you love to write. I think go back to the roots of why you love writing. That'd be my recommendation. That'd be my biggest suggestion. Go back to the roots. Why did you start writing in the first place? I'd say go there. I hope that helps out a little bit. I could monologue on this forever, but I hope that helps out a little bit, my friend, because we've all been there. And I get it. I get it. And I could tell everybody here in the community as well. Don't compare yourself. Copy my number one advice. Don't compare yourself. Writing consistently and being open to criticism are how you get better. Oh, this is a great quote. This is the quote of the day, Eli. Comparison is the death of innovation. That deserves a round of applause. That is 100% the quote of the day. Comparison is the death of innovation. I love that. I love quotes. That's a really great quote. You can figure out more from the world just by writing within it. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and I could tell from some of these other questions as well, 1,000. I think you just need to ask yourself the questions, right? I think it's just understanding why. Hopefully you're able to figure it out though, my friend. Like I love writing, but if I was at a point where I felt like it was a chore or work, I would feel less motivated to do everything. So I understand. And then trying to balance that with all of life's other competing priorities, like that sucks. That would suck. I'll take that with me because it stopped me from writing the Illyria thinking, is this the route I want to go? But if it can help live in the world and build an area, it opens a different view. Aw, I absolutely love that. I'm really, really glad that resonates with you, my friend. That's really cool. That's usual. Okay. Suggestion from someone who doesn't write full stories, just write a scene. Then write it in a different genre, then again and again until you find one that just feels right. That's actually a really great strategy. That's a really great technique, Shulky. It's same with Atomic. I'm going to start a technique channel so we can share different techniques for writers to try out. But that's a really great technique for writers who might want to explore different genres and find one that sounds really cool. Sure, okay. Like sometimes the genre just doesn't feel right with the scene or story, and sometimes it just takes a few patterns of trial and error. I think that's a really great recommendation, actually. All right, my friends. So, with where we're at, I think my voice is a little too burnt as we hit the 3 hour mark to continue on. I know there's a couple more of you guys that had some stories that you submitted. So, here's what I recommend. Since I'm not doing the critique show until December, if you guys want, why don't we throw up some of the stories if you really do need feedback in the Discord? So that way we can still get some feedback. I'll take a look at them at some point when I outside of my client schedule. But I'd say if you submitted a story and I haven't got to it, let's throw it up in the Discord. And then that way, because we have a story feedback area where you could post stories. I think we just haven't used it too much yet. But I would say that'd be the area. Let's throw them up so we can help out anybody else who wasn't able to get the value out of it today. Because I think my voice is done for the day. But I felt pretty good. I mean, I was actually very happy with all the stories I got through. And we had a really good horror creepy vibe going on. So I was very, very happy about that. And that is going to bring me to creative writing on the morrow. So for those of you who don't know, make sure to come back and join us tomorrow. Tomorrow is the next episode of the Create Right Now podcast. And this is actually a very special episode. So this is episode 21. I invited author Brian Peone, and he's going to share his unique technique of how he wrote a horror story on location. He wrote a horror story in a haunted like penitentiary. It's like the creepiest thing ever. you guys are going to want to make sure that you come back for us, because I understand writing, like doing like method writing, like go write in like a coffee shop, go write in different areas, but I have never thought of writing a horror story in a horror environment. I would feel like such like fear. I think of all the horror movies I've seen, and that's probably a really great it's probably a really great technique, honestly. So definitely make sure to join us tomorrow, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. East, 1, 2, 3, 4 p.m. Eastern, for the next episode of the Create Right Now podcast. And if you're looking for something to watch next, down in the YouTube description is our reading sprints for storytellers. It's previous episodes of our story and critique show. We've been doing this we started alternating Saturdays, but this is episode 31. So 30 episodes. Go check out some of the previous ones. We have some great stories there. If you want to hear some other great stories from the community over this past year, it's definitely one of our most popular streams. And don't forget, if you like this stream, tap the like button on your way out. Help us show the algorithms that writing streams are cool. All right, my friends. So I think that was awesome. I appreciate all y'all. This was an absolutely wonderful, wonderful stream. I feel like this was such a good send off for our critique show until we come back in December, because starting next weekend, we have our holiday writing events. We got our holiday writing events. Next weekend's the fiction contest. The weekends after that is going to be our Choose Your Own Adventure NaNoWriMo event. So we got a lot going on over the course of the next couple months. And then in December, we're going into the all-day write-a-thon. So like more details to come on that. I'll start talking about that more in November, but we got the rest of the year is going to be a banger. So let me tell you guys, if you need writing motivation, this is the community to come to. Thank you so much, my friends. Thank you all for coming and joining us. LeMay, Scroll, glad to have you. Eli, of course. 1,000, great to have you. Thanks, Kauffman, at who cares, and Eli and Scroll and all those who gave an encouraging word. I really hope that this helped out a little bit. 1,000, if you need some additional writing motivation, come join us in the Discord. You're amongst fellow writers if you want like additional motivation. The Discord link is down in the YouTube description. So come join us, especially if you want more motivation. I feel your pain. I hope you don't lose your writing motivation. I love writing, so that's my goal. But thank you all for joining. Marta, great to have you in here. And who else? Courtney, great to have you. And all of our other friends who joined along the way. But unfortunately, and Bobby, my friend, glad to have you pop in here at the end, my dude. And unfortunately, this brings us to the end of the stream. Don't forget, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kauffman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, my friends.